Wheel of Time Episode 8, the finale. I've reviewed the other 7. There's a link in the description below down to that playlist. Now, I was recently reminded of this tweet, which I'm glad because I forgot it even existed. But it's one where Rafe Judkins said, "Jordan Con is this weekend. This is the last sweet year. You can all enjoy it before the Wheel of Time TV show ruins the thing you love most." I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I wish I could be there. Like, seriously, just the psychopath vibes coming from this alone just amaze me. But I do really like the hashtag at the end, the Twitter of time, because Twitter is a cesspool, and I think if we've learned anything from this show, that is simply a result of the people, not the product. Look, in this episode, overall, I didn't find it as offensive as I did the last sort of 3, and it might just because I'm getting numb to it at this point. All the characters did stay true to sort of the character arc they've got so far. Now, that's not to say much, because these aren't the characters from the books, but they all suffered the same problems and made the same decisions that they have all the way along, and so overall, it was just a bit dull and predictable. In fact, most of my episode 8 preview that I got was still just as true in this. I got a lot of the plot points correctly, and even including when Agelmar actually gets destroyed. Yes, the first time he gets into a fight. And there's nothing more boring than being able to predict what happens. Even in the scenes I didn't know about as they were leading up to it, I'm like, yeah, I can tell what's going to happen there. That's why when in this episode you had Perrin running around doing nothing. It's like, okay, he did that for the rest of the series. Rand walks around like Jon Snow, just moaning about my queen. Moraine is one of the thickest, most stupid Aes Sedai I've ever seen, who, for some reason, everyone acts like she's got some big master plan and knows everything, when really she gets everything wrong. Lan's trying desperately to protect her, but always fails at it for some reason. And Matt's evil. That's basically his character at this point. Nynaeve and Egwene, I'm trying on the pronunciations there, chaps, they are perfect. They have no negatives, and they suffer no consequences for their actions, no matter how stupid or evil those actions are. And in this, yeah, they suffer none as well. And so, well, the episode, it has massive plot holes. It's massively destructive to the books. I just find myself struggling to care at this point. Then when we finally get to a battle scene, which is, quite frankly, one of my favorite things in both TV series and movies, suddenly it's in the dark and you can't see anything. All of these things are massive issues, and they just seem to be done to save money. And I can't help wondering where on earth it's all gone. But we start in the place where you can actually do the most damage to the lore. The past. And the further you go back in lore, the more damage it's actually possible to do. And this is 3000s back with Luz Thurin. And this entire scene is not in English, and I hate it. I'm not a big fan of subtitles at the best of time, but this serves literally no purpose and contributes nothing. And the language that they're speaking, it's clearly just like, it just sounds made up. In fact, it sounds like something Bill and Ben the Flower Pot Men would create. At least when you listen to other foreign languages, you can kind of tell they're real, but this is just blah, 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 blah. So Luz Thurin is pitching his case to the Tamerlin. Now, in the books, Luz Thurin is the Tamerlin, the leader of the Aes Sedai, and she's just another Aes Sedai. She's nothing special. She just carries some weight because of her power. But he's pitching his case, and the environment in this is the Dark One is going to win. Something has to be done, or they'll all die. And so Luz Thurin wants to seal the bore. He wants to get all of the people and go there and put seals around it and lock him in place. They open the door to him and they want to close it. And she's saying no. And as she's refusing, she's splitting them in two because she goes around all the women and makes them rebel. They revolt. Now in this, she's the leader. So it's like, oh, well, I have the right to do that. But in the books, he's the leader. She's literally staging a revolt of the Aes Sedai against the leader. She is the one that's in the wrong. She's the one doing the rebellion. She is essentially a traitor. She's leading a coup. She also doesn't have her own plan in this. Her plan in this is literally just to lose to the Dark One, so I'm not sure that's the best plan, and that's why this line doesn't make any sense. It's you who breaks us. This only works because they've flipped around who's in authority. Luz Thurin is the leader. Luz Thurin actually has the right to do it, and she is staging the coup. But because that would be wrong and problematic, now we've just swapped it around, and now she has the authority, and he's leading the coup. And like I said, something needs to be done, but in this, she doesn't even have her own counterplan. Why? Because her counterplan was horrible. It was horrific. The arrogance of it was astronomical. So astronomical, they couldn't even defend it in this. They just had to delete it and hope nobody remembered. But Lutheran, this spoilt brat, just stands up out of his chair screaming, "You can't stop me. I'm an adult now. I can do what I want." And this really is the worst one. When you and I became an Aes Sedai, we swore an oath to serve all. But what you plan to do, it serves only your pride. It's either Lutheran plan or her plan. Those are the only two options. Now in this, her plan is to just do nothing and lose. Doesn't seem very bright to me. But in the books, it was go and seal him away and just put seals around his prison to keep him where he is. Or the women wanted to go and use basically massive Sarangriel to literally destroy him. They thought they could draw so much power, they could vaporize a being on par with the creator himself. Which one do you think is more difficult? Which one do you think requires more power? Which one do you think shows the more arrogance? And in another retcon we've got, you expose the very source of the one power to him. Now, nobody knew this. Nobody knew at all. But everyone thought that if both sides, which isn't even mentioned here, actually took part in it, then it would be probably safer and far more likely to succeed. And so Lutheran went with the 100 companions and sealed him away. He saved the world, and nobody expected the counterstroke to happen to him, but they sacrificed themselves anyway to save the world. There was no pride here, there was no arrogance here. One of the plans had to be enacted, and the easier one, the one that was more likely to work, was done. But when you realize that the sort of female Aes Sedai's plan was to literally destroy him with the one power, if just sealing him away with some seals was going to expose the one power to him, then their plan would have done it even more. They were going to blast as much of the one power as physically possible at him to try and literally destroy him. So either one, they're going to touch the power, and that's why this doesn't make any sense. Because there was two plans. Both sides were going to use the one power on him. That was it. One of them had to be enacted, but in this, they're like, oh, well, the plan is to either go and seal him away or just live in harmony with him and watch all the rainbows and the rabbits jumping around in the fields. No, you didn't have a choice. And considering the women were actually going to expose him to more of the one power, then they were going to get the counterstroke as well. So even knowing this in advance just makes all of the plans more stupid and everybody involved. You and all men could throw us back 1,000 years or more, and yeah, it's definitely more. And then he, begs her. He's literally coming to her on bended knee. This is supposed to be the leader, but it's been swapped. So he's just saying, if you help us, we won't fail. We need you. Let's work together. It's the foundational principle of the entire series. Men and women working together to achieve what they can't alone. This might be one of the few lines which actually fits in with what this show is meant to be about. And then she destroys it. As soon as it happens, they blow it up into smithereens. We will remain to pick up the pieces as best we can if you do. We're not going to help you. You come to us on bended knee, begging for us to save you, and we shall look down and we shall say no. And so what can you take from that? That no, they should let them fail. The men will go and sacrifice themselves for the women, and the women will stand by and watch them die, and then just try and pick up the pieces afterwards. Has some foreknowledge of what's happening later in the episode, because it's actually backed up that that is exactly the message of what he wants to send out to the world. And it's horrific. Other shows has heroes and villains, but only this show has people who are supposed to be heroes acting like villains and trying to tell you that that is the correct moral way to be. It's bizarre. Of course, the show doesn't tell any of the audience that. If the audience knew that, they would have an entirely different interpretation of this scene. That's why a load of people that haven't read the books can like this show, because they don't know the backstory and it's never explained to them. And so that's why when you know this stuff, it actually becomes even more hysterical when she actually responds to what she just said with, oh, what's wrong? I mean, I've only told you that you're literally going to go and die and all of the men around the world are going to go insane and destroy the world. But I don't know what's wrong with that. Why are you upset by that? Why are you upset that we won't help you? It should be expected that we would never go and help you save the world. It's horrific writing, and it really, just like I've said before, the moral compass of these writers is just spinning round in circles, and they have no way to know the right from wrong. He's to think the fate of the world was decided in a nursery. And she's like, nothing was decided here. The fate of the world rests solely with you when you face him. And I'm like, well, if he doesn't go and do that, the entire world ends, and you're not going to help him, so you haven't really left him much choice. But even at the end, and to their credit, they actually do a decent father figure. Today, I make the world safe for you. He's not doing it for the world. He's not doing it for everybody else. He's doing it for his kid. And so, decent dude. Now, when it comes to the final scene at the end of how it all looks, I kind of like it. It's got this whole sci-fi mixed with traditional look. I do think that it's all a bit basic. It's not very, like, we could build everything there right now today, and so I wish it was a bit more impressive with some buildings that would be literally impossible for us to build. Make it a bit more sci-fi. Do some wacky stuff out there. But as it is, especially this building on the right, I think that looks really cool. In fact, if you go and look at anything, the only thing you can count is how many sort of buildings there wouldn't look out of place on an adult store. But I don't think anyone's surprised about that in this series. Back to the Blight, and I still don't like it looking from the top down, but when you're actually in it, I kind of think it looks okay. I don't like it used as the environment for the Blight itself. No. But as an environment they could have used for something else, I think it could have actually been decent. Now, we've got Moiraine and Rand here. Obviously, they've gone off on their own, and they see this dead guy. Obviously, establishes the Blight is dangerous. Even the trees will kill you, and they will start growing out of you. It's pretty horrific. Yeah, shock and disgust. That is a good expression. And it's one I would have thought was basically reserved for when he stumbles in on Perrin and Egwene going at it in the backyard. But this time, it's all about a dead man. Although if Rand ever found Perrin doing that, then I expect Perrin would very quickly follow as that dead man. So, I think it fits. But Rand, never one to miss a obvious question, says, what happened to him? It's like, I think you can see that he died to a tree and now it's eating him. But Moiraine's just like, yeah, boys from the borderlands, they like to go into the Blight and test themselves, and most of them find themselves lacking. I'm like, really? I mean, literally, the borderlands was designed to fight the Blight. If most of them found themselves lacking, it's surprising there's any men in the Borderlands at all. Although, as we see later on in the battle, there doesn't actually seem to be that many of them left. But it's just another dig. Haha, the men go and do something stupid. And considering what Moiraine does in this episode, like, she is not one to judge. But she tells Rand, don't touch anything, the entire place is deadly, and this is the Blight. It's very good advice. Although, given their environment with stuff everywhere and stuff hanging on them everywhere, I'm not sure how he's not meant to touch anything, especially when they go and sleep there later on. How are we not supposed to touch anything? Advice is a good one, but it's impossible to follow. But she says the rot includes everybody, including young men way over their heads. And she looks at the body and then looks at him as if, did you get that? I mean you. And I'm like, could you make this any more blunt? And Rand has the best response to this. It's like, it's your plan. You're the one taking him there. You're literally taking him there and going, yeah, but you're so underprepared. You're probably going to die. He's like, what on earth? Perrin walks into Egwene's bedroom without knocking. Not for the first time, I'm sure. But even a broken clock is right twice a day, and Perrin actually comes out with much sense. He says, I don't know why you're packing. It's not as if you can follow them. You don't know where they've gone. And the thing is, Egwene's like, yeah, but I love him. And then Perrin's like, oh, no, I know. I love him too! Now I have to thank Shad from Night's Watch, where he talked about a rumour where Perrin may not actually be after Egwene, he's actually after Rand. And thinking back on it, it makes a lot of sense, to be honest. I mean, it's the only thing that explains that entire ridiculous scene that really annoyed me in the last episode. And it especially explains where they're both looking at each other's lips and swallowing hard, which I thought was just for the shippers. But hey, maybe it's being written into the main plot. It even explains the very weird reaction that his wife has in the first episode to him, where, yeah, if he married her just because Rand proposed to Egwene, and he was actually after Rand, then the whole attitude of where he's like, I love you, and she's like, I know, and doesn't really go back to him, yeah, if he's not fulfilling his husbandly duties, because he can't, suddenly a lot more things make sense. Oh, and it's not like Rafe himself hasn't actually said this. Oops. Hey, all I'm saying is if this series actually goes on long enough that Perrin and Rand hit their 50s, we might even get to see them in a bath. And it's the next response that I actually think backs up the whole Perrin idea. Because she then goes, are we okay? And he goes, yeah, we'll always be okay. And then this happens. And this isn't something that you would just do. Now, yes, if you wanted to make it out so that the shippers were like, oh, maybe those two are getting together, you'd do this. But if you're actually in a relationship with someone and like your boyfriend had literally just accused you of cheating on someone with that guy, the last thing you would do the next day is this, if you actually cared about that relationship at all. But if she knows that he's not actually after her, a lot more makes sense, that's all I'm saying. Welcome to the 7 abominations of Malkia. Now, I was always under the impression that the 7 towers of Malkia referred to basically like fortifications. There were towers that rose up because it was a fortress. It was meant to defend itself. So it makes sense that whatever were the tallest points, they weren't just symbols of pride. They weren't trying to build as skyscrapers or anything. They were fortifications to defend against the blight. But in this, they just look like toothpicks. I don't even know what these are meant to be. There's no sign that any of these were defenses or anything else. And if you actually take those as sort of the surrounding of the city, then they don't even make the city appear very big. So welcome to the 7 toothpicks of Malkia, the thing that nobody knows why Lan is attached to it anymore, because it looks like it was pretty crap. But do you want plot holes? Because I've got plot holes for you. In fact, this next scene nukes about 7 different things. We've got teleporting cities, teleporting people, and everything doesn't make sense from this point on. She says they've been walking for a long time. She says that Malkia is miles past Tarwin Gap. And she even says it, that although it looks like it's been, like, destroyed for 1,000 years, it's only been about 40. And in those 40 years, or even in just the last 3 alone, the blight has gone miles. So they're well into the blight, and it's moved miles past them to Tarwin's Gap. They are miles away from Tarwin's Gap. Remember that, because the show doesn't. Welcome to Nynaeve, the perfect woman, the woman who's capable of literally anything, including not only breaking the rules of magic, but also breaking the rules of tracking. Tracking isn't just as simple as following some footprints, no. To Nynaeve, tracking is as complex as poker itself. Because you see, Moraine, she's got to tell. You see, Nynaeve asked Lan, can you feel anything through your bond? And he's like, no, she smothered it. There's nothing to feel. I can't track her at all. And Nynaeve's like, well, you know, I could tell you how to track her. She's like, you know, when I found you the first time, I didn't track you. I tracked Moraine. She's got to tell. I don't know what the tell's meant to be. I don't know whether she's just got a habit for Werther's originals and just left sweet wrappers along the way every 30 meters to guide people along. I have no idea. It's not explained. And the reason it's not explained is because it's total BS. But here we are, and this is what we're dealing with. The issue is that the Lan was a warder. He would scout ahead to see if the path was clear, and then he would ride backwards and go behind them. And when he was behind them, he would cover their trails. Mat, Rand, Egwene, Perrin, they were all there. They were all leaving tracks. And it was the warder's job to do both. He would literally, as they were going forward slowly, he'd ride back and forth doing everything, covering all of their trails. It was his job. Now, if he's been a warder for 20 years or whatever it is, you'd think he would know whatever her tell was and cover it. But apparently, no, Nynaeve can pick up on something that he hasn't picked up on in 20 years. Because this is a guy who can block literally everybody else's trails, but Moraine, I don't know, maybe she just smells really bad, or was rubbing herself on trees. Moraine's just like a cat rubbing her scent glands on every tree, and Lan doesn't know because he's not a woman and he can't smell them. It's probably the most likely at this point. But Lan's like, you would let me go without you? Dude, you're a grown boy now. You can do what you want. You don't need permission. I know you used to asking permission from Moraine, but she's gone now. You can go. Be free, Lan. Run free. But the weird lines continue. I actually want to show this because it's so bizarre an interaction. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
You are a remarkable woman, Wisdom.
But wisdom never weds.
I don't get how they're related. You're a remarkable woman. I don't get married. I don't get married. It's like, okay, he wasn't asking. You know what else a wisdom doesn't do? It wasn't just that. It was that a wisdom doesn't see a man like a man. She's already broken her vow. All of that's gone out the window. The moment she spent the night with him, that was it. It was over. Game over. And then she goes, well, maybe if I go to Tar Valon, I'll be something other than a wisdom, and then I can marry you. And Lan's just like, lol, nope. Whoever you choose, I will hate him for being with you, and I will love him for making you happy. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. Also, this episode, so far we've had Egwene cry and Nynaeve cry, and not a single bloke, so that's a first. And both of them have been crying over boys. Way to break those gender stereotypes, lads. Way to go at it. There are some moments in life where something happens and it makes you really excited, and then they take it back and you get really upset. This episode has 2 of them, and this is one of mine. Look, we see the blight. It's growing over Rand. This was always one of the weird things. Like, Moraine has literally told him not to touch anything, but then they go to sleep in the blight. And it starts growing on them. It's like, I don't know how you're not supposed to touch anything. What are you going to do? Float above the ground while you're sleeping? It doesn't make any sense. So, in this, it's actually a moment of panic. It's no surprise when Rand's like, what's going on? That was horrible. Why is it growing over me? Rand's like, what was going on? Dreams in this place have power when we're close to the Dark One's prison. I need to know your dreams. It's like, the Dark One was talking to me. Rand's like, the Dark One, he knows where we are. And then a blade just goes through her mouth, and it's awesome. And I'm like, yes, finally, someone has actually subverted expectations. We've actually done something successfully. Oh, this was as bad as when it happened to Jon Snow. I was disappointed then as well. You go so fast from cheering to just, oh no, really? You've done that? Oh, okay. Because obviously you're dreaming when the guy from the dreams actually appears. Now, with this, you have to remember that they've got a very limited budget, and quite frankly, a mask with glowing eyes, that's too far for the budget, so we have to get rid of the mask very quickly. Luckily, Rand's a great shot, but it gives them every excuse they need to get rid of the mask, and now the Dark One is just a bloke. This bloke, in fact, this bloke is the Dark One. That's what the show names him, and so that's why his name is. But he goes, that's better. It's hard to have a conversation, otherwise it's like, is it? Right, yeah, because your CGI budget doesn't stretch to it. I can't really imagine any other reason why the mask that you voluntarily wear would make it hard for you to speak, but here we go. But the weirdness gets weirder when he goes, you look nothing like him, but you are him. I see it behind your eyes. I didn't expect it to be you. I'm like, what? If you didn't expect it to be him, how'd you see it behind his eyes? If you'd seen it behind his eyes, wouldn't you expect it to be him? I mean, I didn't expect it to be him, but that's because he was barely in the show. I knew the books, and I still didn't expect it to be him because I knew who was making it. But I don't think the Dark One himself really has any excuse, especially if he can literally see other personalities behind his eyes. But here we are. I mean, speaking of people we didn't expect it to be, I didn't expect the Dark One to be a normal dude wrapped in a sheet, but we can't pick and choose in this show. And at this point, he's just humiliating him. What's your plan, Lutheran? You do have one, right? He's like, no. Rand has no plan. None at all. He's just being led by the nose like Moraine. So at least that's close to the books. He's like, what's your plan? You brought a single Aes Sedai. You brought 100 last time, and they were way more powerful than this one. And, now you think you can do what you couldn't before? I mean, literally annihilated the entire male species and broke the world with your previous plan, and your plan this time is... And the entire audience is just going, yeah, this is a really stupid plan. I don't know why you're doing it. It's a really stupid plan. And it's like, even though you came with 100 companions, you still failed. I disagree with that. Yeah, there was a severe cost for doing it, but he did seal the Dark One away for thousands of years, which... Let's be honest, it's quite a good bargain. But then he goes, have you even channeled before? Do you know how to channel? Do you have any idea what you're doing? And what does Rand do? Rand pulls his sword, yes. I mean, considering the fact that no one was scared of swords when they can channel, Rand thinks this is a dream, but he still draws his sword on him. This guy could nuke you from orbit with the one power, and you draw a stick of metal and point it at him. Congratulations, dude. You're as thick as Moraine. But then he's impressed by a heron-marked blade. I really don't think that the Dark One would be impressed by a guy that can whirl a sword around particularly well. But then he goes, who would have thought that the Dragon Reborn would have been a fool? And I'm like, you clearly haven't seen any of the other 7 episodes, have you? Because basically, everybody, but Rand's counterstroke to all of this humiliation is just, this is a dream. So yeah, well done, dude. Rand, he really wants to get out of this dream. So what does he do? Yeah, that's not going to work, dude. That's not how any of this works. Firstly, doing that is just a bad idea. But secondly, we've already had dreams where the Dark One actually made it reality. Rand, as far as he knows, this dream is real. This dream affects real life. The last time he had a dream with this guy, he literally pulled a bat out of his mouth, and then the bat was there in front of him. This place has power. This place affects reality. And then he just did that to himself and thought it wouldn't have any effect. But when Moraine asked him what the Dark One told him, he's just like, you've got plans within side plans within plans. And I'm like, I mean, yes, Book Moraine does, but this one, her plans are trash. Her plan is literally just take you to the Dark One and hope you win. And not very Machiavellian. That doesn't really go very deep. It's not particularly intelligent, dude. Now, I have to say, I don't like how the Blight looks from the top down. Or even that this is what the Blight looks like, but just as an environment itself, as a set, I think this looks really good with all the trees and everything else. In fact, it really reminds me of Star Wars, where Luke is actually trading with Yoda. And so all I want for Christmas is Moraine to just hop on his back and just get ridden round like some kind of weird training scene from the stuff. Like, there is a lot of Star Wars references in this episode as it is. And so I definitely need some kind of Moraine Yoda experience going on right now. It would definitely improve the episode. But don't worry, her plan this time is to just destroy a bit more lore. Yeah, she's got a Sarangrial here, which the way a Sarangrial works is it acts as a kind of a buffer between you and the one power. So you'll have your normal amount of power that you can actually channel safely, and the Sarangrial just stacks on top of it and allows you to pull more before burning out. That's what one is. Except not this. This is apparently a sponge, which you can just pour power into and then draw it out afterwards. Okay, I can even kind of accept that because that existed. There's others that have been referenced. They never have much power in them because how are you going to store a lot of power inside a stupid little object like that? But they did technically exist in the lore. But then she tells him to channel into it. Yes, I mean, all of these people, all of these men, it's specifically men channeling Saidin into this object, and she doesn't want him to draw the power out. She wants him to channel into it. Now, there is an instance where he channels into a Sarangrial and it destroys it. So that's a terrible plan, just making it explode. That's awful. And the only instance for making this a sponge and not have it work like all of Sarangrial as meant to, it seems to be that because they've got rid of the eye. Yes, they got rid of the eye from the Eye of the World. The eye was just a pool of Saidin, and she actually does say that this is specifically the only men channeling to that. Only men. So that's only the male half of the source, if the male half of the source exists. And she specifically says, when you channel into it, it'll increase your power. I don't even understand how that's meant to work. Like, all of these men have poured all of their power into it, and then if you also put your power into it, somehow you'll also get more powerful. Like, did they get more powerful when they just wasted all of their power and put it in the sponge? I don't understand. You're supposed to draw through it, not into it. And this also goes against the whole idea of it's another turning of the wheel. Because if it was another turning of the wheel, the magic rules would be the same. And they're not. And they kind of hint at the previous plan where he goes, and what will I do with all of that power? And she says, you'll seal him away for another 3,000 years. And he's like, what, just that? It's like, yeah, what else? Do you think you've got enough power to actually vaporize him? Because that's what the female Aes Sedai wanted to do. But now that's Rand's idea. Because Moraine didn't give him the plan. He's hinting that that's Moraine's plan. But she never told him that. So that's all on Rand. So now, both plans that were meant to destroy the Dark One have now all been attributed to men. Congratulations, you've made an abomination, Raf. Well done. But it only gets worse, because he says, you thought it would be Egwene. You thought Egwene was this. This is why you taught her to channel. You thought Egwene would be the dragon reborn. And I mean, despite all of the evidence and all of the facts and every single prophecy saying that it's literally impossible to happen, yes, Moraine seems to imply that she did. The issue is that Sarangrial specifically had 100 men channel into it. Egwene can't channel the male half of the source, if there is a male half of the source. So, the only thing that makes sense, if she thought it was Egwene and she only brought one Sarangrial which had men channeling into it, is that women can channel that half as well. Which means there's only one power, there isn't two halves. And again, this is what has been said repeatedly throughout the entire series. Every time it's ever been mentioned, that's what's always been insinuated. The only time that it hasn't been is apparently in some extra material that basically no one will watch. So they add all that extra material that no one will watch. They say Saidin, but have on the text which everyone will read and no one will actually recognize the word. They have those for people to point to. But I only care about your actions, not your excuses. And so people can say, oh no, they've definitely established that there's two halves of the source. But when every single bit of logic in the entire episode, when everything that every character says, all says there's only one, I'm just going to go off that. That's clearly what's intended. That's what they want the audience to understand. And so that is what reality is. Everything else, it's just a smokescreen when people complain. But then Rand goes, so did I. I'm like, dude, you literally held the book, the Koreathan cycle, in your hands, which said it was a man, and what, you didn't read it? Can you read, Rand? Can you read? I'm not sure at this point, because you've done some very stupid things, so we're gonna have to work this one out, because that prophecy is very obvious. It is very clear. It says, the shadow shall rise across the world, and darken every land, even to the smallest corner, and there shall be neither light nor safety. And he Who shall be born of the dawn, born of the maiden according to prophecy? He shall stretch forth his hands to catch the shadow, and the world shall scream in the pain of salvation. All glory be to the Creator, and to the light, and to he who shall be born again. May the light save us from him. That can't be any more obvious. It can't be any more sure, except no, apparently Egwene's definitely it, definitely, even though everything says it isn't. Although it does make me laugh that literally they used the Sarangrial to replace the Eye of the World, the Pool of Sidin. Why? Why? Because your budget couldn't stretch to it? Your 100 million budget couldn't stretch to what? A puddle of water with some food colouring in it and just put a sheen effect over the top? That was too difficult, was it? That was too difficult, because I'm pretty sure I could do that in my sink. And then Nynaeve and Egwene are listening to the wind, and Egwene listens and she hears the trollocs coming, which is incredibly useful because 2 seconds later the bell goes off and everybody knows. Now Rand asks Moiraine how to channel, and she's like, I can't, because if I teach you how to channel, it'll involve touching the source, and that'll drive you more insane. I mean, okay, Moiraine in the books realized that the dragon was gonna go insane and he had to learn to channel, so just him touching it would be natural. In fact, you can't decide not to channel, it's just normal, so whatever happens, it's inevitable. And yet in this, no, she's not going to train him, even though it implies she could, because of that one reason. Despite the fact that men and women channel totally separately, men dominate the one power and women submit to it. So it would literally be like, what is it, a fish teaching a bird how to fly or something like that. And she should know this, but she doesn't. And the reason she doesn't know this is because there isn't two halves of the one power, it's just one power. Again, Moiraine appears thick when she doesn't even know the basic laws of magic, but that's because in this universe they're completely different, but we're going to pretend they aren't by putting it in an extra. And even when Rand's like, look, I need to know how to channel, I'm literally going to face the dark one, and you want me to just, what, go in unattended? She's like, oh, when you get adrenaline, you'll just know, it's just magic. I mean, her plan is literally just, you go forwards, I'm not going to tell you anything, and when you get there, something will happen and it'll probably work. It's so awful, it's laughable, but the writers of this show think that is a woman who literally has a plan within a plan within a plan. She's always prepared with the best of everything, including just, you'll know. But when Rand's like, I don't think that's the best idea, she just tells a story of how she was in the tower and she got beaten by one of the Aes Sedai until she actually grasped the source and defended herself. And I'm like, hang on. That's Nynaeve's story. You've literally stolen that from Nynaeve, who was a wilder, and she had a anger emotional block. She could only channel when angry. And so eventually they put her through a load of various different horrible experiments in a way to break the block. And once it was blocked, and once it was unblocked, they could channel as normal. But those involved things like getting beaten. That was how they did it. Except in this episode, Nynaeve isn't actually angry anymore. Do you notice that? She's not talking on a braid because it's not angry, because that would be a stereotype, and you can't have a stereotype. So in this, she can just channel whenever she wants. It's easy. She's perfect. She has no negatives. But we still like that story, so we gave it to Moiraine instead. Isn't it weird how you can transfer things around that are actually pretty important, and actually even the writers like themselves? You just can't do it to this person because that would break the rules, which is what makes this show so predictable. Zoomed in carpet again. Loial has arrived, and if you forgot he existed, so did I. I mean, and literally, as he walked in, I'm like, oh, I forgot him. I mean, he was only one of the main characters in the books, but he's not in this. You barely see him. Is it because of his costume? I don't know. But for whatever reason, we barely get to know him, and he barely says anything. In this, he doesn't say anything. But there's some really weird lines in this. Like, Egwene literally goes, you need to tell us what you told Moiraine about Rand. She's like, a person's secrets are their own. It's like she literally asked you what of Rand's secrets you told Moiraine, and you're like, oh, a person's secrets are their own. No. Like, you already broke that. You can't even keep your contradictions separate for 2 sentences? Are you actually serious? And then we get the glory of seeing Nynaeve's face burning off, and I'm like, oh, finally. And the soldiers too. Suddenly we realize that something horrible is going to happen. The soldiers are all going to die, and the bell tolls. Yes, you see, Egwene actually knew that the trollocs were coming and told no one about it. And then they found out for themselves. Why would you give anyone any warning when you could instead just go to the bar? The trollocs have arrived, and Agelmar's not pleased, but his sister, obviously, she doesn't miss a chance to go, I told you so, I told you so, I warned you. Look, we're all going to die, but that is the perfect opportunity to go, haha, I was right. Yes, you'll be really useful in a life and death scenario. And then he admits that 2 ropes were cut on the drawbridge. There are dark friends inside the city. And obviously this is the Borderlands. They have actually pledged themselves to fight the dark. Dark friends are a way bigger problem out here, because everybody from birth is raised to fight it. And so nobody really thinks that dark friends are there. It's a massive deal if even one dark friend exists. These are people that literally been brought up from birth not to do this. Yeah, sure, they're everywhere else, but no one really expects them to be here. And yet in this, it's just like, oh yeah, dark friends exist, that's fine. There's no weight, there's no gravity to it. It's lost all of that because none of it is explained. I mean, we had an entire episode about how a warder actually gets a bit upset, but instead we had to cut things like this, which actually would have made this actually carry some weight behind it. But to the audience, they're just like, oh yeah, dark friends, they exist everywhere, don't they? That'll be fine. There's a lot in this episode that seems to rely on your knowledge of the books when actually supposed to be pitched to people who don't know the books. It's weird. Now, the weird thing for me is that there's Tarwin's Gap. That's basically the main and only way out of the Blight in any significant numbers. And what do? They build a tiny little wall in the way. I mean, if I was them, this entire open valley I would fill with intricate kind of defenses and different layers that they've got to get through to make it all the more difficult. But in this, they just kind of put a Lego brick in the way and call it done. How long have you had to prepare for this? Because it looks like you just built that yesterday. It's a horrible plan. So we need to send all of our men to the wall. And it's right, that's the choke point. Defend the choke point makes the most sense. And it was like, the gap won't hold. Is like, have you got no useful advice? If you've got no useful advice telling us that we're all going to die, that's not helping anyone. Come up with a plan, offer some help, offer some advice, or otherwise just shut up. Either way, that has to be defended. We have to stop the shadow spawn, and she's like, but we're all gonna die! Why is she even an advisor here? But he tells the men, you know what you need to do. I'm gonna take my personal guard and the men to the wall to defend it. And she's just like, but you're all gonna die! Oh, she's annoying me now. It's no wonder when that Moraine turned up, he started having a go at her. I thought it was a bad move before, but now I've seen this, it all makes sense. And even as they all leave, she still stands behind to go, but you're all gonna die! And we get this little beauty. Yes, welcome to the plot hole. Welcome to what I said about distances. Remember when they were at the 7 Towers and she was like, oh, it's miles and miles away. They've literally been traveling for a night. They've slept, woken up. They've had multiple breaks. They've gone ages. They've spent ages in the air. That's about 200 meters, do you think? Maybe 1? It's not far, is it? Either they've circled round and just magically looked at the city, or they've teleported. There's no other way to do it. There's no way you've walked for a day and a night and rested and got tired and traveled to Malkia, which is miles away, and you're only 200 meters away from the Tarwin's Gap. But that's what we're supposed to believe, and it's just bewildering. Look, this is clearly a scene that is meant to be earlier in the episode, but it's been edited here. This is just terrible editing. They're meant to have seen the trollocs, but they wanted to do all that stuff at first. They had so much to fit in that by the time they'd actually fit the Moraine scenes in before and tried to get, actually, the passage of time of them moving, which worked. It was good. You knew how long they'd traveled to actually get where they needed to go. Now you've teleported them back to the starting area and had it 100 meters. And it also means that Lan left before that arrived, and now, what, he's got to catch them up 100 meters? That shouldn't be that difficult. Not now he's got her tell that nobody knows about or can explain. But we get to the Eye of the World, which isn't an eye, and it's not the Eye of the World. The Eye of the World was green. That's gone. It doesn't look very green to me. And in fact, I think they've taken the boar, really, literally. The boar that was meant to be in a parallel dimension is now a mine shaft. And this is particularly weird staircasing. It's like, it doesn't really make sense. Because if you're going down into it, there's like these V-shaped stairs. And so every time you get there, you're like split, but then you'll run into here. But people will be coming down the other one. So you've got 2 paths of staircase going down, which merge into one. It's not efficient in any way, shape, or form. I don't know why it's designed this way. Honestly, you probably should have just had one path going all the way down and looping round. Seems like it would have been less effort to me, but what do I know? And of course, Rand's like, I know this place. Yeah, you knew the mountain as well. That wasn't much use either, was it? So, I'm not going to pin my hopes on that one, love. And I kind of like the next little scene, even though it includes an incredibly stupid line. Rand's like, you said everybody that goes to the Eye of the World will die that's not the Dragon Reborn. Does that include you? And I'm like, well, yes. She is included in the word everybody. Everybody is included in the word everybody. That's why we have the word. He's like, maybe she's just a random exception. Don't know what I'd give you that one. But she just kind of shakes her head and walks on. It's like, I've already accepted my fate and what will come. which is very Moraine. She had a goal, and she was completely focused on that goal. And anyone at all, including herself, was forfeit as long as the goal got achieved. Because Rand even tells her to stay. He's like, I don't care. I'll go down. I mean, your plan is literally that I'll just magically know what to do, so I don't need you. You can stay here. You don't need to come. But she's like, no, I have to see this through. This is Lan going through the Blight, trying to catch them, bearing in mind that we've already proved that he set off before the Trollocs arrived, and so he was less than 100 meters behind them. I really don't know what's taken him so long. Although he sees the 7 toothpicks of Malkia and doesn't look very pleased with them. I'm like, yeah, mate, we all feel the same. Believe me, we all feel the same. But we're back in Fal Dara, and we're still doing the arrogance of men lines, and she's just like, look, you're all gonna die. It's like, yes, we got that the first time, you don't have to keep on. But then he comes out with his master plan, that all of the men are gonna go to the wall, and all of the women are gonna stay and defend the city, which is apparently normal. Now, that wall's not very big. I don't know how many men you've got in that city. I can only assume Moraine was right, and most of them just died out in the Blight for some reason. There's certainly not a 50-50 balance. If there was, there's no way the women could defend the city, because the city's massive compared to that wall. But also, she can channel. And she knows other people that can channel. And they know 2 people from Moraine's group can channel. And they're going to leave them in the city. He even admits in this that she is right, and that actually they should have gone to the Aes Sedai. He should have put his pride away and gone to the Aes Sedai and asked for help. Okay, so now you've realized that. Why don't you do it? She's been trained by the Aes Sedai. There's 2 other women that she knows can channel, and, you know, Moraine's couple can. Or at least you could ask. But either way, no, you're going to leave them in the city. You're going to go to the wall and defend in the front line, leaving your biggest army, the nuclear weapons, the masters of the one power, the people where one of them is equal to 100 men or more easily, and you're going to leave them behind for absolutely no reason whatsoever, so that apparently you can at least die first? It's a stupid plan, but they've given... but at least if it was Aegilmar the Arrogant, they could have got away with it and gone, well, he just thinks men are better. But now he's admitted that he needs their help, and he's still not asking for their help. They can't even stick to their own character twists. And honestly, the only redeeming feature of this scene, once you realize that part, it was where she's like, look, we're all gonna die, the gap can't hold. And he's like, yes, we can't hold. The city won't hold, the walls won't hold, none of it will hold. The Trollocs will come out and they will sweep through the gap. They will sweep through us. They will sweep through every single city afterwards, and they will take over the world. But at least we can sacrifice ourselves. We can try and delay them. We can take out as many as possible and try and give the rest of the world a chance. So if Aegilmar's going to go out anyway, I kind of am glad he went out with that being one of his last lines. He went out at least trying to be a hero, because what they did in the last episode to him was an abomination, but that's a good sentiment. So here we are in a sort of, some kind of Aes Sedai temple, it looks like, which is probably where they're going to say the boar happened. Really don't like the fact that the boar's here, or that they're going to say that the seals were actually tied to a location. Not a fan of that. It made sense to the eye of the world, but now you've moved the boar, and so, ooh. I actually don't know at this point if Shyle Gull even exists in this world. It's just another turning of the wheel, though, folks. Yeah, they're only removing major landmarks and locations from the entire place. Maybe they didn't have enough money for it. I don't know. The best bit is when Rand goes, I know this place. I'm like, well, that's weird, because I don't. Wasn't in the books. But she says, we have no idea what this was. Every record was burned by the Dark Friends in the tower. I'm like, hang on. So they just burn the records? I mean, Aes Sedai lived for hundreds of years. Surely you must have read the library. What about the Browns? Like, one Brown at least must have read them. Couldn't they just have written it down again? But apparently, no, it's all lost because someone burned a book. Okay. But we finally get the symbol of the Aes Sedai. Of course, I don't think they even call it that in this. But here we are, the female half and the male half of the power. It's one of the reasons it doesn't work if you get rid of them. But that is what they're going to do anyway. And I definitely think they put scenes out of this out of order, or they weren't sure what they were going to put in. Because even in this, Rand's like, oh yeah, Luthrin. When I was Luthrin, I fought the Dark One, but he looked like a man. And I'm like, hang on. You've already seen him as a man. You literally met him and talked to him earlier, and this is the same man. So you've already spoken to him, seen him, recognized him. He's told you what he is, and you're like, so surprised in this that he looks the same. What? And this, again, doesn't really make sense. He's like, oh my god, there was a symbol. It was this symbol. And I'm like, yeah, Moraine should know that. Like, the Aes Sedai should literally know the symbol for the Aes Sedai. It doesn't make any sense for them not to. There's no reason for them not to. There's no reason for them to forget. They might not like it, but there's no reason for them to forget. And then Rand completes the sacrilege by calling it the Eye. No, the Eye was a pool of sardine. The Eye isn't the name for the symbol of the Aes Sedai. That would just be the symbol of the Aes Sedai, but now apparently it's the eye of the world. No. Now, when he touches it, Rand actually teleports into this room, but teleportation has happened so many other times in the series, I don't know whether he's actually dreaming at this point, or has literally just been teleported into another room by bad editing. So, we'll have to wait and see. But Rand walks out and he sees Egwene and his own baby. Yes, they're having their own little idyllic world of their own, where he lives with Egwene in perfect harmony with their baby. It's what Rand's always wanted. We don't know if it's what Egwene wants, and it's certainly at this point not what Perrin wants, no matter who he's after. And then we find out what's happened. Yes, the Dark One has actually made him sleep, sent him to the dream world to be tempted by his perfect world. Of course, it's not perfect, because Perrin isn't there, but it's probably about as close as we can get without actually spoiling that kind of little drama. Now, but Moiraine channels, because for some reason she thinks she can take on the Dark One on her own. I don't know what her plan is here. But we get this really cool scene where you get all these spikes of air coming at him and he just stops. And he just stops them without even thinking about it. It's like, yeah, your power means nothing here. I don't have to think, I'd have to struggle. Moiraine has to constantly use her hands and think about it, and he just handles her like a baby. He can do anything to her at this point. And I really like the power imbalance here, because we've already, in the first episode, bigged up how powerful Moiraine is, and this is just a guy completely and utterly schooling her. She has no control in this situation. And all he does is move 2 fingers, he shields her, starts weaving into her, and that's it. Game over. Like, she didn't stand a chance, and the shield was immediate. You saw how long it took her to shield Logain, really actually setting it down, concentrating it, making it go, and he just goes, boom, shielded, that's it. And with one last twist of his fingers, that's it. She's cut off from the source. She can feel it, but she can't do anything. Now, there's some debate here about whether he stilled her. I don't think he did. I don't think he did. I think apparently even Brandon Sanderson said she was stilled. I don't believe it. It doesn't make sense with what happened in the future. But I did really like the scene. Not only did I think it look cool with all the blades of air coming in, but just the fact that she's like taking someone on and he's just like, no, what are you even doing? And handles her so quickly, so easily. That's exactly what would happen. The difference in power between characters is astronomical, and you shouldn't be messing with that. I don't like it when they mess with power levels like they've done with Nynaeve. So actually doing this to Moiraine and just literally, she thinks she's amazing and she just gets battered down as if she's nothing. It was awesome. It was really cool. I'm glad there wasn't even a fight there. It was just really solidifying this guy's power level, which is good for the future. And he's there and he's taunting her. He's like, oh, it must be awful, to feel the power but not be able to actually touch it. Now, we get a load of trollocs. We don't know why they're waiting. They're just waiting for darkness. And it doesn't really explain why. It's probably because the CGI budget costs less and they can look bad, but no one will see them. But we're not going to put that in the lore or explain it. They're just standing there for some reason. That's a lot of trollocs, though. You can see them going all the way back in the gap. This is a massive army. At this point, you think that someone would go, yeah, those channelers, like the nuclear weapons that we left back at base? Maybe we shouldn't just let them stand out there. Maybe we need them here to defeat this massive horde. No, instead, Agelmar's plan is to take a really quite small number of men to a wall and leave all of his most powerful people back at base. Even though he's admitted that he needs them, wants them, and that actually has no, he's completely surrendered to them and gone, we really should have asked the Aes Sedai for help. He's still leaving the closest things to Aes Sedai he's got back at base. You shouldn't have made him repent. You shouldn't have made him say that the women were amazing and that he regrets everything, because now none of it makes sense. At least if he was just arrogant and despised them, this would have at least made sense for his character. Not now. I'd just like to point out here that those are the same staircases as at the boar. I don't know why. I said I thought they were weird before. They do make more sense going up than down, but you've still got 2 people meeting that have then got to merge onto one, so it's not very efficient, and I don't know why it's like this, but considering they've already rendered the staircase in one place, they just reused it in another location. It's all about that budget. And this is where we see women actually preparing the defense for Shinar. I actually have no problem with women defending Shinar. In the Borderlands, they definitely would be able to handle themselves and would have been trained in order to do it. That's all fine. My issue is that there's literally no men in these scenes. At all. They've all gone to the wall, every single one of them, which means that entire band of people that you saw is every single man in Shinar. And there wasn't many of them. Really begs the question, what are your men doing? And whatever it is, you should probably stop them, because they seem to just be dropping like flies. And she wants to spread the word through the city that any woman that can channel the one power, she needs all of them, and they all need to defend the city. And I'm like, okay, that's great advice. That's a great idea. Then you're going to send them to the wall because they're really needed at the wall. And at this point, it doesn't matter what he's told you. It doesn't matter what your opinion is. If you can channel the one power and have the effect of a nuclear bomb, you have a duty to go to that wall and defend it. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you've been told. If you let those men die when you could have stopped it, that makes you evil. That makes you wrong. That makes it a horrible act that you have done. If you stand there and watch them die when you could have saved them, you are guilty of it and you are responsible. Just like that Min's like, I know how all this ends. I'm off. I'm out of here. And I recommend everyone else does the same. And welcome to an abomination, because the only men which didn't go to the wall are now they're digging up the Horn of Valere. Yes, the Horn of Valere, which is supposed to be at the Eye of the World, but can't be because they've removed the Eye of the World and made that a symbol of the Aes Sedai, is now under Agelmar's throne. And Nynaeve's just like, we need to run away. And Egwene's like, okay, I'll follow you. I'll run away and let everyone else die. I just need a place to go. And only Perrin is the one that actually stops them, at least temporarily. So at least Perrin has some morals. He's like, look, you can't leave them. You two can channel. One of you is like the most powerful female channeler that has ever existed in thousands of years. And you just want to run away. What kind of coward are you? Of course, he doesn't say anything so bluntly because one of them's Egwene. And yeah, he needs her on his good side if he's going to get with her hand. But Loial comes up and he's like, look, they're calling for channelers because basically everyone's going to die if we don't have channelers. And don't you think that you should probably do this? And they're like, oh, well, we were just going to run away and let everyone die on their own. But now you've said that they've actually asked us for help. Now we'll have to go. Like, literally, that's all it took to change their minds. They were going to run because they were scared for their lives. But now Loial's just like, well, they were kind of asking for you, though. It's like, oh, okay. Okay, then, if that's what it takes. And then we get a battle scene in the dark. But what you can see of it, it's good, at least. Just to give you an idea of what we're working with this. That's about as bright as it's going to get. Now, for some reason, you can still see it's light at the back, but there's not going to be any daylight during the entire fight. Now, the trollocs have no siege weapons. They can't go through the wall, so they've got to go up and over the wall. At least in theory. I'm literally showing you this scene, so you see what I see. That's as dark as it gets. That's about as much detail as you'll be able to work out during this entire fight. I even kind of like the scene. It's got a bit of tension to it. There's got music kicking in. There's a bit of excitement. It's just, I don't know where the budget's gone. If this is the best we're going to get with this amount of budget, what happened? And they're all the arrows. And this is the problem, right? The trollocs have no siege equipment. They can't go through the wall. They have to go over the wall. But there's all these holes in the wall which are really low down and make it really easy for the trollocs to get through. Yeah, sure, you can shoot a few arrows through them. You're not really doing much, especially when they're so far down. You've actually made massive weaknesses for them, because apparently trollocs can go through those things. It's a cool scene of them going down all the crossbows and firing one after another. Oh yeah, screw volleys. Who cares about volleys? Just fire at will. We hate will. And then we start to see the tactic. And I say see the tactic, it's so dark you might not actually be able to understand it. But essentially, because they can't go through the wall, the trollocs are standing on each other's shoulders. They're just building up bodies at the bottom of the wall and then climbing up them to the first hole. That's it. That's their tactic. They're going to go through the arrow slits into the wall and then take the entire wall. Do you know the counter to that? Do you know what the best thing about that would be? Don't have the arrow slits. Just have a wall. Like, literally, there's no way they can attack those trollocs at the bottom once they reach the wall. There's no oil. Like, just pour oil over it and throw over a match. This would be so easy. And they don't even have the most basic defenses, which everybody knows about and would be common sense to create if no one had. Like, they could invent these. They've been fighting these battles hundreds of times against the trollocs, and apparently they don't even know the most basics of defense or the most basic way to counter any trollocs at all. But what happens next out of the entire series is the most pure act of inexcusable evil I've ever seen. There's no coming back from this. There's no way to morally justify this. This is horrific, and anyone that thinks that this is a positive thing, I don't know what to tell you, because all of the men in that wall are dying. They are sacrificing themselves to try and save the city in a battle they know is lost. And what are they doing? The women are watching it. And who else is there? Nynaeve and Egwene turn up, yes. This are your 5 channelers. This is the 5 on which the fate of the world hangs, as the trailer said. And I was right. It was the 5 women. They're all tactical nuclear weapons on their own. The strongest fighters around. And what are they doing? They're standing there watching the battle. They're watching the men die, trying to save them. When these people are the ones that could stop the trollocs. These are the strongest weapons they can have. And their powers would be best used in Tarwin's Gap, where all of the forces are completely condensed. Anything they could do would be multiplied tenfold. That's why Tarwin's Gap was amazing in the first place. And what are they doing? They're standing there, listening to the screams, as the men desperately fight and die, trying to save their city and their families and their kids. And these people don't care. They don't even try. They're literally just standing there having a discussion. There's not even any consideration of going over there and trying to save the men. No, we'll let them all die. And then once they die, then we'll pick up the pieces. This is once again the story from the start of the book. It's like, oh yeah, we'll let the men sacrifice themselves, trying to save the world, and then afterwards, the women will come along and pick up the pieces. Except it's not like they're doing out of kindness. They're literally sabotaging the men. This is literally women that are waiting for the men to die before they do anything. Thousands of them. They're letting them sacrifice themselves for nothing when they could have helped. I actually can't think of anything more evil than what these 5 people are doing. Then there's no coming back from this. There is no way at all after this I can ever think of Egwene or Nynaeve as anything other than pure evil. Because they have literally let every single man there die and not even tried to help them when they know they can. Back to Perrin, the man who had a thought once, but it died of loneliness. And he's like, oh my god, are we just supposed to sit here and do nothing as our friends die? And I'm like, no, you're actually supposed to go out there and help them. That's what you're supposed to be doing. But you're choosing to sit there and do nothing because that's the kind of person you are, Perrin. You're a coward. And even Loial's taking the point. He's like, well, I'm not even sitting. I'm just standing here doing nothing. And like the immature brat he is, he just stands up and kicks the chair and goes, this is BS. It's like, what is the way of the leaf? The way of the leaf, I'm just meant to let everybody die. And I'm like, no one's forcing on you, Perrin. That's literally the foundational principle of the ideology. They just talk at you, and then you make your own mind up. For some reason, you're obsessed with it, even though you never were in the books, and you're just waffling on crap now as if, oh my god, I've got to obey this thing, even though I really don't have to. Like, dude, you can just go out there and be useful for the first time in your entire life. But no. And then Loial's like, oh, there's always options other than violence. I'm like, that's weird, because in the books, you were pretty amazing at the violence you could put out. Being 10 foot tall with a massive axe, it tends to be pretty effective. But then he's like, what? Well, what can we do? And Loial's like, well, we could go and ask somebody. I'm like, really? Is that your decision? You've mitched them at the way of the leaf all of this time, and now you're like, well, maybe we could just go and someone else could put us to work. No, or you could be a grown adult and make your own decision for once in your life. You could get out there and help the people which are dying on the wall trying to save you while you sit in there and whine about the leaf for some reason, even though no one actually cares about it. It's like, Perrin, you're an adult now. It's probably time to put your big boy pants on. You've already killed one woman. You might want to start making up for it, because apparently there's no consequences for your actions, so maybe you should actually start feeling bad about it and doing something good to try and make up for it yourself. But instead we've got the guy with 2 brain cells rubbing up against each other to try and desperately have some friction for warmth in the cold, and Perrin's just wandering around, oh, I don't know what to do, could someone please tell me what to do? It's like, seriously, Rafe, if you're actually planning to turn this bloke and this is your poster boy for that, then I don't know why you're treating him so badly. We're back to Rand and Egwene, and even though it's an incredibly boring scene, Rand's actor is really trying to make his face do all the work. It's just like complete confusion. I don't know what's going on here. It's a weird dream sequence. I've got to try and keep the audience desperately entertained at some point, because literally nothing is going to happen in this scene for minutes at a time, so my facial expressions are going to have to do all of the work. I don't even know what this facial expression is meant to mean, because he's supposed to be confused, I think, but instead it's just like, oh my god, has he just seen the script for the first time? Because that's exactly how I would feel. But instead, we get thoughtful Rand, and he starts to ask Egwene a question to see if she's real, because even though he knows it's a dream, for some reason, he thinks, well, maybe it's a dream and she's real. It's a load of real nonsense at this point. But he asks her a question, and she gets it right, and that's just too much for our big boy Rand to handle. But don't worry, Rand is crying again. It's tradition at this point from the episode. He's got to cry at least 3 times every episode. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if someone told me that a shadowy cabal of people were all organizing in order to try and get the Checkers Republic to actually get flooded at this point, just from Rand's tears alone. It's kind of the area we're getting to, and I really hope they've got their flood defenses up, because you're in for one hell of a next few years. And we literally get a scene where he's like, "It's really you." And the Dark One's like, "Psych, no it isn't, just when you thought it was, but I can tell you how to make it real. All you've got to do is literally get rid of all your feelings and emotions." So he's basically talking about the void here and the flame. First time it's ever been mentioned, even though it's not actually mentioned, at least it's described for once. More than the rest of the series does. And it's like, if you want it to be real, if you want her to be a real boy, Pinocchio, then all you've got to do is channel into her and believe. Like, seriously, this is about the depth of character we've got from a Disney movie, and we're just getting it pointed out to us. Yes, just believe in yourself and believe in the people around you, and everything will become reality. It's not how any of this works, dude. But then the Dark One's like, "See, he's channeling now, and I don't know which one he's going to choose. Is he going to choose light or dark?" And it's like, well, that's a stupid thing to do. She can't even sense a man channeling. If you hadn't told her he was channeling, she wouldn't even know. But she's like, "Haha, psych, I'm Moiraine with plans inside plans. And my deep and complex plan this time is that I'm just going to put a knife at his throat, and if he doesn't choose the dark, this will happen." I mean, I don't know when he's going to choose the dark, because he's literally unconscious and I can't see inside his mind. But I'll probably know, and if I know, then I'll use this on him. I mean, the Dark One's literally there. He's already, like, either shielded her or stilled her. She can't see him channel. He doesn't have to move to channel, and he could just wrap her in weaves of air and stop her from moving. But no, Moiraine's definitely sure that this tiny bit of metal is more powerful than the one power. Do you remember when Rand thought that earlier and I said that was BS as well? Well, don't worry, because it's back again. Perrin is treated in this scene with all of the lack of disrespect that I honestly think he deserves, because he hasn't done anything to actually earn anyone's respect. In fact, I don't even know why he's in the series at this point. And he goes and he asks the big, strong men, the people with actual beards, what they can actually do, because he wants to be a real boy. He wants to be an actual man. So please, just tell me what to do. Hey, mate, just hit this big thing with this axe, yeah? This is literally the most useful thing he's done throughout the entire series. We get a scene of the 5 most evil people in all of the Borderlands just watching thousands of men die, even though they could literally save their lives with a thought. And we're back to the attack. The trollocs are charging at everyone. And I tell you that because you may not be able to see it, because it is very dark. But then to a good scene, because it's men, so it's not CGI, so you can see for once. And they're all shooting the arrows out. It's all great. But we're really about to see the major flaw in all of the defense plans, and I don't know why it even exists, because apparently hundreds of battles have been fought here, and so they must have known that this was a really bad idea. We get a trolloc appear for a split second, and then he hits the stone with his axe, and it just makes a big hole in it. And this is where you realize, oh, that's how they're going to get through the wall. They can't just break through the wall, but apparently these arrow slits are just so fragile, they can actually climb up on each other's shoulders, make a hole big enough for them, and then get through that hole, and now they're in the wall. Seal them all up, put them on top of the wall, now you can still shoot, and all of those trollocs have to go all the way higher. And then you can just put oil on the top of the wall, pour it over, and set fire to it. You don't even need Aes Sedai. I've just literally made that defense about at least 10 times better, but apparently Agelmar's an idiot. We even get this shot of exactly what they're doing. They don't even have to go very high. You get a few trollocs, stand on each other's shoulders, and up you go. What were they doing in the other battles? If they actually won the other battles and this is how easy they're defeated, what were they doing there? You don't even need many trollocs to get this far. That is the first trolloc which Agelmar has fought. The first one. That's the second trolloc 2 seconds later. And he's gone. I told you in the preview that Agelmar would die in the very first wave, and I think 2 trollocs counts as the first wave. It was obvious this had to be done. The way he spoke to Moiraine in the last episode, no one speaks to a woman like that and gets away with it. It was karma. It had to be sacrificed. Like, he couldn't live after the way he treated them. It's so predictable. It is so predictable, and that's why I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, of course he's... like, because I predicted it days earlier. Now, I did kind of like this scene, and it looks really good in movement, but when you pause it, it turns out most of it is blurred, so it probably doesn't actually look as good not in motion as you'd think it does. But this is basically like one of the few times you see a trolloc in full light, and then I just pause it and it's blurred. Yeah, Yeah, I think it looks good in the, like, 0.25 seconds you see it on the screen, though, so that's something. I tried to pause it on another screenshot immediately afterwards, also blurred, so I give up. I give up. And the Dark One's still trying to convince Rand, and Rand's like, oh my god, she's still real. But then he still doesn't do it anyway, so the Dark One's like, I'll prove to you that you think she's real, and he cuts her neck. And Rand's like, oh no, don't do that. The thing is, this doesn't really make sense. Like, most people wouldn't go and get, like, a photograph of their wife and just start slashing it with a knife. It's not something you do. It's not something you'd want to do. Doesn't mean that you think the photograph has any power or contains their soul or something. It's just a symbolic representation of what you love. And that's what this is. It's a dream. It's like, yes, of course he's bothered. He's literally seeing something he loves harmed. But it doesn't mean it's her. But the Dark One's like, oh, it's definitely her. She's definitely real. Oh, by the way, she's not real, and you've got to channel into her to make her real. Both of those things can't be true, but the father of lies is literally telling him to believe both of them at the same time, which is just an ongoing thing that you're supposed to believe in this series. That two contradictory ideas can be pitched by the same character and believed by the same character at the same time, and that's normal for some reason. And Rand's like, oh my god, how do I make it real? And the Dark One's like, oh my god, it's so simple. More simple than you could even imagine. I'm like, yeah, that's because you can't think of a complex magic system. I mean, you had one already literally laid out for you, but you've thrown that out the window, and now you're trying to write your own, and the only thing you can come up with is one that's so simple. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to keep up with this one. In this scene, nothing is said. It's just he walks around her in a semicircle, and they both look at each other threateningly, not saying anything. It's really intense. Look, he's staring at her. Whoa. Sends a shiver down your spine, doesn't it? I'm not sure if she's looking at the knife or down her own top. Then we get a hand knocking on a door. Now, I don't know who this is, but judging by the hand, it's probably someone from the Two Rivers. And the women ask for a password, and it's time for the fan service. Every episode has one line from the books. That's it. That's as close as these episodes ever get to the books at this point. You get one line, and that's it. That's so people go, hi, it's so like the books. Oh, it makes me feel fuzzy inside. And they completely ignore all of the people just literally crapping on the IP from a height. When I say people, probably just a few, let's be honest, and I think I can name most of them. But the line is basically a line of poetry that Lan recites at Fal Dara. Yeah, they didn't have to read very far for this one. And it turns out it's Paiden Fain. He's finally arrived to actually do something. And then the women realize they've opened the door and it's two Fades. And although they try and actually handle them, they can't because they're Fades and they're just far better warriors. In fact, only the best warriors even stood a chance against a Fade, and these certainly weren't it. In fact, it probably would have been better if we'd sent these people to the wall, because considering the wall is about as much use as a chocolate fire guard, we'd actually had some real defenders guarding the most valuable item in all of Fal Dara. Just a thought. But I have to admit, I haven't liked Paiden Fain throughout any of the other episodes, and it's mainly because he wasn't the character. He wasn't Paiden Fain. Paiden Fain was literally at the start some nice peddler, not a rogue, and then afterwards he was sort of very pitiful creature who eventually went mad before coming into his own. And with this, they've basically started him at his maximum power level, it seems like. But this actor at this bit completely won me over. And it's only for one very simple bit. All he does is he just looks at him, sniffs, kind of shakes his head and just trots on by. And it's like, yeah, he just treats them with the total disdain they deserved at this point. It's like, yeah, you just opened it to two Fades, you complete morons. It's almost like a dark cosmic justice. At this point, I'm kind of just cheering for the evil people, because the good guys are basically evil themselves. Now, the next bit for these items gets a little bit funky, and I'm not exactly sure where half of it happened, because it means Moiraine's an idiot again, but she's been an idiot for most of the series anyway, so, you know, it's just par for the course. But here we get Perrin being treated as Perrin deserves. Literally, all of the men in the room are just going, you go do that. You go and dig that on your own. We'll just stand and watch as you do all the heavy lifting, Perrin, because that is the only thing you're actually capable of doing. Just being a dog's body that other people point at jobs and tell you to do it, and you just do what you're told. And they're like, oh, it's the Horn of Valere. It's like, really? Really? Because the Horn of Valere was, like, literally tempting to anyone who had it. Agelmar couldn't even stand it in his locked treasure room for an evening because it was so tempting for him to blow it and then go to Shaiol Ghul. Now, Shaiol Ghul apparently doesn't exist or something in this, so It's not like he knew to even ride there. Maybe that's why he could resist it, because he just didn't know where to go with it, so there was no glory to be had. But the very idea of it was so powerful, it would tempt all men just to want glory and victory. That was literally, and this is where you could have done it. You could have done the pride of men here, that the pride of men just made them not be able to resist power, but instead you put it at the start of the episode, rather than this bit where it belongs. So in this, Agelmar and basically every normal dog's body in the entire city all knew exactly where the Horn of Valere was, and they could just sit on it and not be bothered or tempted or touch it or anything else. This is just like Gandalf getting hold of the One Ring and then just going, I'll take up the mountain myself, it's fine, it's all fine. And they say it's to call the Pattern's greatest heroes, and Perrin's like, oh my god, we can use it over there, we can save everybody, and they're like, no, it's not for us, it's for the dragon. I'm like, okay. That would make sense if you actually believed in prophecy and had the prophecies and had actually explained the prophecies. But in this, it just makes you all seem like fools because, yeah, it's for the dragon. Why? Who knows? Is there anything causing it? Is there any downside to using it? What are the rules of this thing? Why can't you use it over there? Because you should be able to, unless you tell me a good reason why you can't. And the book had a very good reason why you can't. But in this, no, we're just not going to. No. They're only men. We'll just let them die. The women will deal with it after all the men have gone. Okay. And now the trollocs have defeated the wall and are pouring through the gate. And you know what that means? Apart from those few men we've just seen in the throne room, every single man in all of Fal Dara has just been wiped out. All of them. I'm not even sure how they repopulate that city. I don't even know what those women are going to do. But every single woman stood by and stared on as they listened to their men scream their last breath. Evil. Literally. Standing there, staring, watching every single man die like they are nothing, when these 5 are the people that could have stopped all of it, and it wouldn't have even needed to have cost them anything, because in that gap, it would have been even easier to fight the Trolloc horde. And she's like, oh my god, they're through! And then he's like, there must be 10,000 of them. I'm like, well, you've seen about 3 run through the gate, so I'm not sure how you actually can really appreciate that. But yes, there would have been a lot less if you'd gone and done something, but instead you decided to stand in the desert for 3 hours while everybody in front of you died, and you did nothing, even though you're literally one of the most powerful female channelers to ever have existed on the face of the earth. And you're like, oh, I'll just stand here and wait and do nothing. It's about the face I would have expected. And Egwene's like, does this mean Rand failed? And I'm like, you've literally just watched thousands of men die. And you're like, oh, what about this one bloke, though? No, firstly, worry about the city. There's more people there. Worry about the people in the wall. It's already too late to them. And then worry about the completely immoral act you've just committed by watching thousands of people die and doing nothing. It's like, oh my god, does this mean Rand has died? It's like, yes. Don't worry about what you can do to save other people. Just worry about a guy who's in a completely different fight that you can do nothing about while you stand and watch a fight happen and lose that you could have saved. And then she gives the quickest explanation of linking ever. Just open yourselves up when I ask. Okay. And you get this really weird reaction between all of them. I'm like, oh my god, it's racking me. The magic is racking through me. It's like, no. They're supposed to be This is supposed to be a pleasurable experience. There had to be a bit of respect for the power, and it's like, oh! No. This is probably supposed to be symbolic of something. I don't know what it is. I kind of wish it wasn't a starfish. I wish it was more of a clamshell. All of the trollocs are charging at them in the dark. You know, this scene could have been really good, because it's quite atmospheric. Again, sound effects, sound design, doing great work. Look, you can barely see anything. That's the only downside. I think if you actually could have seen these scenes, it would have been so much better and so much more impressive than it actually comes across. Again, this is one of the things where you watch it through the first time and it feels pretty decent, and then you realize it's the sound effects doing all of the work, and you watch it again, you're like, I can't see anything. And this is a great picture to show you just how much better it would have been if the Aes Sedai had gone to the wall. Like, they could have defended that tiny little gap. Every single bit of their power would have been focused and killed so many more trollocs because they would have been grouped up. And even at the wall, if they had hit the ones at the bottom of the wall, they couldn't have even climbed up. They couldn't have got through the wall. Those 5 women could have saved Tarwin's Gap easily. None of what happens in the future has to happen. But now, because they're all spread out, all of the power that needs to be used is so much more because it's so less effective spread over such a wide distance. We've seen the women not just watch all of the men die, but then they chose the single worst defensive position to stand and hold them. They didn't even choose the city walls. Then we have Perrin notice Paiden Fain. I'm assuming he's coming out of the treasure room. He's just outside of the actual main throne room themselves, where they've been digging. And he's like, hey man, stop, because that'll work. And this is it. This is literally the IQ test. There's a load of weapons there. He can take his pick. If he doesn't know one, he can choose one of the better ones. And what does he do? He runs past them. I mean, I wouldn't even want to be around Perrin in this story, because he walks into a room and everyone else loses 10 IQ points via osmosis. We go back to Rand again, and he's still trying to convince him to do the thing which he all knew he was going to do, what, like 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago? And then he starts to channel. But we get a really weird line coming up next. And this scene is the Dark One, a man teaching another man how to channel, which is the way it has to be done, because a woman can't teach a man to channel. I mean, they can in this TV series, but that's irrelevant because it's just made up fan fiction. But then even the man gets it wrong.
Don't fight it.
Literally the opposite of what you need to do. No, men fight the power. Men fight the power, and men dominate the power. That's what they've always done. That's literally the fundamental principle, the rule of how men channel. Women submit to it, and men dominate it. Doesn't matter what I say, Rafe. That is literally the fundamental principle of the books. You can try and change it here. It just means you're wrong. You're not fixing the law here, Rafe. It's coming across as if you're really thick and can't even understand the most basic principles of what you've read. You have read them, right? And the Dark One's saying to Moiraine, see, he's channeling and you don't know whether he's going to side with the dark or the light. And we get Moiraine's eyes. Eyes like that are normally only seen on women on TikTok, but apparently we've got a great impression of them here. And then we get some raspberry sauce come out over the knife, but I'm not going to show you that. And I just want to point out how wide an area the trollocs are running over. So you're going to need a lot of the power to actually burn all of these, because they're not very condensed. Not like they would have been in Tarwin's Gap. And also, for some reason, the Aes Sedai seem to think they're musketeers or something. Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes, lads. Don't fire. And she's going really Darth Vader. I need more. Give me more. And it's like, it seems to imagine like she can draw more power through them. I'm pretty sure she can't do that. I'm pretty sure. And I don't think any of that's how this works. Now, I am a little bit hazy. It's been a while since I've gone through the whole linking rules in the books. But I was under the impression that the people that you linked with acted almost like a Sir Angriel does. It's a buffer. So they draw their power through them and then connect to you, and you take that power. But they're still the ones drawing it. They're still the ones that submit. And once they link, they lose all control of what you can do and they can't cut it. But I thought they could control how much they pulled through it, so you couldn't burn them out. The only way that people could burn out during linking, because it happened, is because they couldn't cut themselves off from the link. If you kept pulling through them, then essentially they would get so exhausted they lost control, and they'd either stop submitting or stop fighting it and dominating it, and then the power would just crush them. And so that's how they got stilled or gentled, whatever you want to use for the independent ones. But in this, they've changed it so that she can control how much power is like pulled through them, and she can pull more through them than they can actually handle, and that crushes them. It doesn't really make sense. In the books, there's literally times where people channeled for like 12 and 14 hours at a time, like in huge battles. But in this, it lasts a few minutes at most. And also, keep your eyes on Nynaeve. I don't know what was going on there, but it was like she was, And I don't know what this is, where she's like just pulling it into her and holding it. I think there's an element of that, but normally you would pull power in and immediately weave it out. We see no kind of elements of weaving. It's just like, yeah, I'm just going to keep drawing it into me and then I'm going to explode at some point. After Perrin left, they continued digging and they found the Christmas sweet tin. Meanwhile, Rand's still channeling. The evil women are all still channeling, and the leader's going, hold, hold. It's like, firstly, none of them can run away. You're linked. There's nothing they can do at this point. And secondly, you're not musketeers. Just start blasting. We're going to wait until the trollocs get really close to us just to show how much power we had and that we were under no threat whatsoever and could have just very easily held Tarwin's Gap without even really struggling. Right, we are still channeling. We're still waiting for them to get closer. Only at this distance, which is what, maybe 40 meters or something, do they actually decide to channel. All the times where Aes Sedai got really tall positions so that they could see the field of battle because they could channel easily, at any distance where they saw, ignore all that. Ignore all that. That's out the window. No, now we've got to see the whites of their eyes because we watched a Wild West movie once and we're really trying to imitate that. Look how close they get before anything happens. So then we send out a big shockwave. We haven't weaved or anything. It's just an explosion of power. It seems to be what everything is. All of Nynaeve's are just an explosion of power. This is just an explosion of power. No weaves. No, people are just batteries in this. You just pull in power and then explode and everything's fine. And then we get lightning, actually one of the elements, which makes sense. And just imagine how effective this would have been in a really small condensed corridor where none of the trollocs could have actually moved or escaped. People are getting burnt out almost immediately. We are seconds into this fight just because more power is being drawn through them than they could channel. I don't know. I don't know what this is meant to be. She should have been safe until she lost concentration. Does look cool when they get burnt out, though. Rand changes his mind for absolutely no reason and decides to channel into the Sarangrial rather than from it, even though it's a pool of power which you would assume you would draw from, not into. Moiraine sees it glow, and this is her plan, so she decides not to kill him, even though her plan sucks. He's like, what are you doing? You could change the world and make it into whatever you want. And he's like, it is what I want because Egwene's not going to be with me and she's going to go to the tower, which is what she wants and that's who I fell in love with. I'm like, oh, Christ. You were going to make it, but then you realized that Egwene wouldn't like it. Why? Because she's my queen. It's like, seriously, is that the only motivation we've got for this entire character? Honestly, can someone get this guy a fridge so we can actually get a decent storyline from him? But he's like, no, Egwene. Oh, it's all about Egwene. Nothing about saving the world. Nothing about noble sacrifice. No, we're not going to do it because it would be wrong or immoral or evil or it would damage the world in every way and remove everybody else's free will. No, we're not going to do it from any kind of perspective like that. No, it's just because I want to get inside Egwene. Is that as deep as we can go, Rafe? Is that the level that your entire life is based upon? Right? He even says to Rand, you can do this, it's what you want. And it's like, but what about what she wants? It's like, yeah, but what about the rest of the world, Rand? What about the millions of people and the rest of the world? So for some reason, he starts holding the Sarangrial at him. I don't know why. He doesn't have to do this. It could be on his belt and he could just channel into it or whatever, or pull, draw from it. It's the power. It moves. You can send it wherever you want. It's not a sword. It's not something you actually have to hold at somebody. All through this next scene, all I want the Dark One to do is just go, yoink. Would have been so easy. Literally, the memes write themselves. Look, it's within arm's reach. He could reach out and touch it. And he's not doing. And the question Rand should be asking himself is why? Why, when I'm offering this thing to him on the golden platter, is he not touching it? But everyone's too thick for that, including the writers. So he blasts them. And again, I think it looks kind of cool. Especially we get to see this guy vaporize in front of our eyes. It's not my theory, but it's what you're supposed to think. And what I said would happen with the Sarangrial happened. Essentially, he channeled into a Sarangrial and it just exploded in a direction. So now, that's what Sarangrials do. They're just sponges. You don't draw through them. They don't buffer you in any way. They don't protect you anyway. It's just a sponge that explodes when you channel into it. So much better in the books. Oh, you just want a one-to-one adaptation? No, I just want something that's good. So Rand falls over and his motherly figure is holding him. Again, there's different sides for this. And Moiraine asks him, what happened? He's like, I did it. I killed the Dark One. And if that face doesn't go, no, you didn't. I don't know what does. It's like, she doesn't even believe it herself. I mean, she does later, but that's because the director can't actually remember what they told her to show on her face for this scene. But that's not really Moiraine's fault. Perrin is wandering around alone, unarmed, chasing a guy who, as far as he is any reason to believe, is completely evil. I mean, he's been followed across the country by this guy. The last time he saw him, trollocs invaded. He can't think he's a good guy. That's why he followed him unarmed. He's not really thought this one through, has he? He gets scared by a bat because he's a little crybaby. And then he hears fighting back where he came from. So not only did he walk away unarmed, leaving them defenseless, but he's also so close to it that he actually hears fighting. He didn't even get very far. Only Perrin could walk 20 meters away from the throne room and still get scared by a bat. Is the Fades and Paiden Fain, and they've taken everybody out, including Loial. Yep, they've killed Loial. At least until the next series, where he'll probably just be magically brought back. I assume so. It's that, or the actor just didn't really like his makeup time, and so that would explain why he's barely in the season. Now, This will annoy a lot of people because Loial was great in the books. He was in all the books and people loved him. So not going to be happy with this, but myself, was it Loial? I mean, he was barely in the show. He barely did anything. He barely had any lines, and he vanished just for huge sections of episodes at a time. So I don't think the actor really liked his part in the first place, and they barely put him in. So when this happens, I'm like, I don't really care. He was a side character. He was barely in the show. It doesn't bother me. In fact, they've made the main characters so evil and unlikable that I'm kind of cheering for them to go as well at this point. So I don't know. Maybe the budget just doesn't stretch to Loial's makeup anymore, and they realized we can't put him in the rest of the series. This takes too long, it takes too much money, and so he's got to go. I can't really think of any other reason why you'd get rid of him, although, especially with how he looked and how he looked nothing like him, I can't work up the energy to care. And I think this was meant to be a really emotional moment. I think you're supposed to go, oh my god, Fain is evil. Fain is really evil. He's killed this most loved character. But he wasn't loved in this because not only did he not act the same, but he was barely in the show. You can't have an emotional death if you've not given the actual audience a reason to care about him. And you haven't. Because you can't. Because I don't think you even understand what an emotional connection is. In fact, the scene made me kind of like Fain, I've got to be honest. The evil women are still waffling on. And Nynaeve's like, we've stopped them. You can see Egwene there. She's sort of burning up because apparently she's losing concentration or something. I don't know why. The person who's leading the circle would get tired first because they got all that power running through them. The other people, as far as I'm aware, they could sense the big mass of power and sense the other women in the link. But it wasn't strenuous to them because they still only had their power going through them. So if anyone is going to burn out first, or if anyone's going to lose concentration first, it would be the person who's in the lead. And Egwene is far more powerful than her, because she couldn't even be an Aes Sedai. She wasn't powerful enough even for that. So she'll know a load of weaves. She probably know a lot of battle weaves and everything. That's why she was leading the actual circle herself. But there is no way that Egwene or Nynaeve would burn out before her. No way on earth. The only excuse I could think of for this would be that because they're not used to channeling, they may not be able to hold their link to the source as long, and so they may not be able to submit to it enough. And if that's the excuse they want to go with, Nynaeve and Egwene actually not being submissive, I can fully see that. Them having trouble with that is absolutely something I can completely understand. She's like, oh my god, I can't let go. Was this a thing? I don't think this was a thing, was it? You actually can't let go of it? Yes, there were people that kind of got carried away because they loved the emotion too much and they didn't want to let go, so they'd burn themselves out just because they were kind of having too much fun. But she's like, I can't. I don't get that. That's not a thing. Another one burns out again. I really like this burned eyes effect. Why can't we have more stuff like that? It looks awesome. You do get these like little sparks of quality in the show. It's just a shame about everything the writers touch. And then both Nynaeve and Egwene are all burning up at the same time, and I don't get it. I mean, she's held off matching chin, but she can't just be in a link with people far weaker than herself. The other woman who's all just burnt out like seconds ago, and now the most powerful female channeler to be seen in thousands of years, is suddenly like, oh my god, I can't handle it anymore, ah! Now this makes more sense. Like now, she's completely overjoyed with it. She's burning up herself and she's just immense pleasure, and now she doesn't want to let go. Great. This is what they should have done. But earlier they were like, I can't let go. Don't get it. I don't get it. You're contradicting yourself again in the space of 5 seconds. Now they've actually collapsed before her, the weaker person. Hey, maybe if they'd had a male mare, they would have been better at being submissive to the power. I don't know. So I can feel the world. I thought you were going to burst into a Disney song at this point. Just like, I can feel every stone. I've picked one up, love. It's not that impressive. And I was kind of happy about this bit. These are probably the 5 most evil women on the planet. They've just watched every single man in their entire city die when they could have saved them, and they chose to stand there and watch as they screamed. They reveled in the pain of the others, and now they're finally getting their comeuppance. They're being held accountable for their actions, because none of this would have happened if you'd gone to Tormund's Gap. None of this would have happened on the wall. You could have saved them with a fraction of the power. It all could have been over. No, but you decided to let everybody else die. It took so much more power that now this is happening to you. This is instant karma. No, because I underestimated girl power. Yes, Nynaeve is somehow pulling the power that is being channeled through Egwene into her, and so she's saving her and healing her at the same time. It's not a thing. That's never happened in the history of the universe, but nor is anything else Nynaeve's ever done this entire show, so I don't know why we'd start to obey the actual fundamental rules of the universe here. This is why it's not another turning of the wheel, by the way, because if it was another turning of the wheel, the magic system would be the same, the rules would be the same, the fundamental principles of the universe would all be the same, and they're not. They're changed, because this isn't the same universe. If anything, the only thing that explains this is if the Dark One, like, broke the wheel and then made his own new one, a new universe with different rules. Or like Rand had done something like that. This is a theory that's been proposed on our White Cloaks on many different occasions, and I am fully behind it. There is as far as I can see, that's the only thing that explains there actually being different magic rules for this than the books. And I highly recommend this scene is only watched on an aeroplane, because there you've got sick bags easily at hand. Because she's just like, oh, a woman is always alone and never alone. Talk on your braid. Talk on your braid. Yes. Pull my hair. Pull my hair is literally the message that we get in this scene. I don't know why. It's like, oh, it's only supposed to symbolize that you're angry, but we can't have an angry Nynaeve, no, can we? We can't do that at all, because that would be a stereotype. So now it just symbolizes all women. So for anyone that's asking why she hasn't been tugging her braid, it's because it doesn't mean the same thing anymore. The only reason she holds it now is to think of all the wommans. Right. And Egwene's like, no, don't do that. And I'm like, actually, this might be the first good thing she's actually done. Because everything else, she's never struggled with it. She's never been challenged by it. She's just magically been amazing and done things that no one else could possibly do in the entire universe and not even suffered in the slightest. But now it's going to cost her. Now she's going to have to sacrifice herself for somebody else. There's going to be consequences to her actions. This is actually Nynaeve's heroic journey. Because as far as we can see, it's either Nynaeve takes all of it on and goes, or both of them do. So I was like, okay, maybe we get a good story out of this. At least 4 evil people will die, and one of them gets away, and then she can live with the guilt for the rest of her life. Okay, good. We've already lost Loial. At least now we can wipe out another one, and we might actually be able to get down to a decent bit of storytelling for once. And the link is broken. The person leading it gets burnt out, and Nynaeve gets burnt out, and you can see what we're all working with. Egwene's fine. She's been essentially healed, and Nynaeve is a goner. She's finally has some consequences for her choices. And she's dead, right? Definitely dead. Definitely had consequences. Dead on the floor. Completely burnt out. There is no coming back from this. She's dead. Definitely dead. Right now, I hope you've all been keeping track of all the items, because we know where the Horn of Valere was. It was under Agelmar's throne. This is the evil knife from Shadar Logoth. And my question is, where did that come from? The only thing I can come up with is that is what was in the treasure room. How did he get there? Because in the books, the Horn of Valere is in the treasure room, but we know that wasn't in this. So he went into the treasure room to get the evil knife. So how did the knife get into the treasure room? Because the knife was in Tar Valon. Now, you would think if you were a Moraine and you had, like, the most evil and most contagious item in the entire world with you, you would give it to the White Tower and they would deal with it because they're Aes Sedai. Why not? No. Apparently, she chose to carry it with them through the ways, which you would assume may even attract Mash and Shin. She had no idea whether it would or not, and then all the way carried it to them and took it to Fal Dara and put it in the treasure room. Like, one of the most contagious, most evil items in the world was just carried along, what? Did Lan carry it? Who was carrying it, and why weren't they affected? The last time we saw it, Lan covered it in a bedsheet. Is that protection? Is that all that's required? A bedsheet? Because that's not attached to him, that's in front of his shirt. Is he guarded against it? What are the rules here? Why don't we know the rules here? Why is nothing ever explained? Why can't we keep track of these things? Why don't the audience know? And why is Moraine not following the most basic common sense principle of bad evil thing, lock it up in tower? Moraine is an idiot in this show. And Fain does this big expedition dump. I was down there all along. I was the one that bought the trollocs. I was just after you. You're all Ta'Veren, and the Dark One wants you. And at this point, it's just like, can I have him? Can the Dark One have him? It'll make a better story at this point. We've gone this far. Let's just see what happens when everyone turns evil. Because we've all got Nynaeve and Egwene literally being evil, but the show thinks they're good for some reason. We've got Mat going evil. Rand is just a crybaby, and Perrin does nothing. Let's just have them all turn over, and the Dark One wins, and just see what happens. Can't get worse. And now the penny is starting to drop. And it's yet another prediction I got right from the preview. She's definitely dead. Look at her. She's dead on the floor. She's definitely dead. And this was really the best excuse that they could have had for why the trollocs and the fades and everything else never followed them to Tar Valon, never chased them anywhere, because apparently now they're not trying to kill them, they're just trying to turn them. And obviously the way you would turn Teviran evil is by just leaving them alone. Clever. But the worst bit is as he goes along, and he's literally going, we need the dark, we need balance. It's like, no, the Dark One didn't want balance. This isn't Star Wars. This isn't the Force, and you're not a Jedi. All right? Can we just get that out of the way straight away? Stop stealing Star Wars stories, because I don't know if you've been watching Star Wars recently, but it's not in the best of shape. It's probably not something you actually want to take ideas from if you actually want to make any money. But also, it's not even what the Dark One wanted. The Dark One literally wanted to blind the eye of the world. He wanted to break the wheel and take it over and remake it in his own image. The Dark One didn't want balance. He wanted to crush the Creator, to destroy what the Creator had made, completely and utterly. The entire point of why the Dark One is evil is because he only wanted his side, his opinion, his choice. And what Paiden Fain is actually discussing here is the good guy's argument. Paiden Fain, the evil guy, is arguing from the position of the light, that you need both sides working against each other and together to turn the wheel. That actually you need both sides because then you have free will and you have a choice. And that's that choice that matters. You've got the evil side that only want their opinion, their choice, no alternative. And then you've got the good guys, which are like, okay, just make your own minds up because we basically need people to choose, because without the dark, how can you choose the light? So we've got Nynaeve and Egwene just being evil on the battlefield, and we've got Paiden Fain, who's an evil guy who's spouting the good. This show is completely twisted upside down, where literally the villains are the good guys and the good guys are the evil. Everything just backs up the idea that the Dark One won, broke the wheel, and this is his idea of a new world. This isn't another turning of the wheel. It's the only thing that makes sense. Of course, the other alternative is that the writers are just trash or evil. But Rand's like, oh, I'm not going back with you. I've felt the evil. I'm going to go off on a mountain. And everyone should be like, well, you can't go off on a mountain. That was Nynaeve's plan. That was stupid when she said it, and it's still stupid now. Doesn't matter where you're going to go. You're still going to go mad because you can't stop channeling. The taint will get you. And that basically, you will witness the fate of all men. That's what should be said. That should be told to him, that his plan is trash. But apparently, no, Moraine's just like, yeah, go on. Off you go. I mean, I can't lie, so I can't say you're dead. He's like, well, you think of something. She's like, yeah, I am good at lying, aren't I? I'm good at lying and making really awful plans. But I can at least understand the point of this in the fact that this would be one of the times in the books where Moraine did let him go because he's stubborn, and so if you try to make him come with you, he's just going to dig his heels in anyway, so you're going to have to let him go. But as they've already used this trope 3 other times in the entire series, every time Rand's like, oh, I don't want to go, she's like, yeah, go on, I don't care about you. She just does it again here. It's the same old trope. It would have carried weight if they'd stuck to the books and done it this as the first time, but because they keep reusing it, it's like, oh, this again, really? She's like, oh, okay, do what you want. Perrin, almost in tears, is about to produce his first drop of testosterone in 20 years. And he reaches for a weapon. Finally, Perrin, you've picked up a weapon. You were supposed to do it in episode 1 because you literally make the things, but apparently, no, you finally realized that actually, when someone wants to come and attack me, I might actually need to defend myself. Congratulations. And I was Team Fain, but this is maybe one of the most ridiculous lines I've ever heard, where he's like, oh, yeah, there you go, the tiniest push and you turn to the dark. I'm like, what? He's literally picked up a weapon to defend himself against pure evil, and you're like, oh my god, you're turning to the dark. No, again, it was stupid in Star Wars, and it's stupid here. Self-defense is a good thing. Self-defense is a good thing. It's a moral act, and people should do it when they are literally being attacked by evil. It's not dark to do it. It's a human right. But apparently, no, now, the way of the leaf is good. Like, literally letting evil attack you and harm you and doing nothing about it, but self-defense is wrong and immoral and evil and the dark. I don't know if we can suddenly get the subtle messaging that they're trying to put across here. I don't know. The analogy completely eludes me of what they're trying to say in this social commentary. Oh, seriously, it's so subtle, it didn't fly over my head, it hit me in the head. It's ridiculous. And Perrin's only response to be that, where he's like, oh, the tiniest push and you turn to the dark, is, what? You are an idiot, mate. Still doesn't do anything, though. He just stands there, like a pleb. And Fain says, oh, Rand may be the dragon, but all 5 of you have a part to play. And I'm like, can we find out what Perrin's is? I just want to find out what part Perrin's is, because basically, his part seems to be standing in a corner, being thick, not doing anything, and just going, oh, my queen, my queen. And I'm not sure whether by that he means Egwene or Rand, and I kind of just want to know. I want to know which one it is, because I think it'll be hilarious whichever he chooses. It is Rand, though, isn't it? And then he just walks off, and the Fades walk off, and they just let him. And he's like, oh, okay, you're hoping he'll turn to the dark, and you've maybe taken him picking up a weapon as a sign that he's turned to the dark. Don't know why, but that's why you're letting him live. I think that bit at least makes sense. Perrin's behavior doesn't. The backs are to him, dude. Do something. For the first time in the entire series, do something. Coward. Coward. I do like this image, though. It's Moiraine sitting on the broken symbol of the Aes Sedai, and the penny is dropping for her. Well, it should be, but I don't think she's quite there yet. Oh, bedhead. I'm guessing Rand's had a very interesting goodbye with her. Hey, it's not me doing it. This is Raf's fanfiction. I'm just taking his lead. It's just as likely to be true as anything else that they've spun out at this point. Lan finally turns up, even though he was only 100 meters behind them, as I proved earlier in the episode. And we find out Moiraine's master plan, her secret word games, the master manipulator. Her way of telling people that Rand has died is by going, he's gone. Oh, I never saw that one coming. Now, Lan asks her to unmask the bond, and she's like, I can't touch the source. And I think you're supposed to think she's been stilled. I don't think she's been stilled, because it doesn't make any sense. But now that doesn't mean she hasn't been, but it wouldn't make any sense. What would make sense is if she's just been shielded. We actually saw her be shielded during the fight. It was just done instantly. There is an issue that if she's been shielded, she should know, because she should just be able to reach out and sort of bump into the shield. But maybe she doesn't know what being stilled feels like. Maybe she's never been shielded by a man before. She wouldn't be able to see the weaves or sense the weaves, so it'd just be like bumping up against a wall, I guess. I think that's most likely, and it's very easily to explain it away like that, and I think it's the most sense. Because otherwise, she's been stilled, but she's still got her water bond, but Lan hasn't gone insane or felt it because she smothered it. That's not right. She can also still not lie, so the lies on her are still bound her by the oath rod, so she must have power in her, but she can't touch the source. So the only thing that makes sense to me is that she's been permanently shielded. I hope that's what they're going to go with, because it's the only thing that actually makes sense. But all of the other magic rules are wrong, so this could just be another one. Perrin has done nothing this entire episode. He's run about, he moaned that he wasn't doing anything, then he went to a throne room, moved a heavy stone, then ran away and didn't do anything, then ran back, watched all his friends just get slaughtered, and then did nothing, and then walked out and stared out at the desert of everyone else that did do something and suffered for it and saved him while he continued to do nothing. This is the most awful character in the entire series, and I tell you, I've explained who it is. Nynaeve and Egwene and everything have always been the most annoying before, but he is the most useless. And this includes Matt, and he hasn't even been in the last 2 episodes. At least Matt is interesting. This guy just lumbers around going, oh my god, what am I going to do? I'm completely useless. They're all dead. All of them. And she's like, oh, Nynaeve, come back. I know you're dead, but maybe you're not because I'm magic. She's definitely dead, dude. She's dead. This is like Red Dwarf. Everybody's dead, Dave. Is Nynaeve dead? Yes, everybody. Everybody's dead, Dave. And if she wasn't dead, she's completely burnt out as well. But she is dead and not moving, and you can see her. Just look. Use your eyes. Even her own face is shocked. Oh, I can't believe the writers have done this. This is the most ridiculous thing they've done the entire series, and they've really gone some to actually top it. But here we are. Oh, I'm not dead anymore. I'm magic. I'm magic. You're magic. We're all magic. There's no laws of the universe. Everybody's dead can just be brought back to life. I mean, Egwene, she's not even very good at channeling. She actually isn't. She's got brute force, yes. Not a strong sense in healing, though. Wasn't particularly skilled in it. Nynaeve, one of the best healers to have ever lived, and one of the most powerful. Had natural talent for it, because she'd been doing it her entire life. Egwene, never. No, not once. If this had been flipped the other way around, it might make a tiny bit of sense. But in this, no. Egwene actually has other specialities in the power. It's not this. And this was literally impossible. You couldn't revive someone from death. One of the foundational rules of the universe, but we're in a different universe now, so different rules. It's not another turning of the wheel. Oh, isn't it so wonderful? I've just healed death. Bear in mind, there are 3 other corpses right next to her who also suffered the same fate. Don't mind about them, though. Don't mind about them. I mean, we watched thousands of men die, so what's 3 more? What's 3 more? I mean, I could literally walk 10 feet and save all of them, but I'll just leave them on the floor, shall I? Oh, we're hugging. There's 3 corpses next to me I could save because I've just saved you, but I'm too busy hugging. We're still hugging as all of the corpses of everybody that died lay around us. You've got thousands of men in there you could do something about. You've got 3 people within an arm's reach just out of camera shot, and then you've got your friends up in the tower as well. What are you going to do? Are you going to save them? No, I'm too busy spooning. We have a Rand with an expression on his face. I don't know whether it's supposed to be evil or something. I mean, if we're supposed to think he's evil, he's going to be a good guy. So, go Rand! And then we get the announcement that actually it's Quaindar. The symbol of the Aes Sedai is all of it. Can't be destroyed. The 1 power can't destroy it. But it does get weaker over time due to the Dark One's taint. So this got weakened, and then Rand walked in and used basically a magic nuclear weapon and shattered it. And Lan asks, what does this mean? And Moiraine realizes this wasn't the last battle. This was the first. Because they've just started it. Rand didn't do any good. Rand did something really, really bad. And he only did it because Moiraine asked him to. I was right in the preview. Rand just started the apocalypse, folks. And from the preview, from that 1 minute of footage, I basically said that the trollocs would attack the wall. They would very quickly go through the wall. Aegilmar would ride out to meet them, die in the first wave. The trollocs would come. 5 women would stand there and defeat them all. And then Rand would probably do something stupid. He would probably think he was doing something good, get it wrong, and cause the apocalypse or something. And I think all of that was right. I even nailed the exact wave that Aegilmar would die in, because he was a leader, a man, in power. He offended Moiraine and insulted women, and you can't have that. All of the rules were followed. Aegilmar had to have instant karma because he had to have justice for the way he'd actually mistreated people that were on the top of the pyramid. Every single thing I nailed correctly, and the only spoiler that I actually knew was that Loial had died, and it was something that I didn't care about, but seeing that is why I knew a lot of other people would be very, very angry, and when I saw that, I didn't want to know the rest, because I kind of just wanted them to, hit me first, and then I made that video. So, I knew absolutely no spoilers, and nailed the plot almost perfectly. Except it was just way worse than I thought it was going to be. I didn't know they were going to bring Matt in and just showing him being evil again. It looks like he's back with the dagger, when before he just didn't want to go because it was dangerous. But now he's gone full evil. He's completely turned during Fain's speech when he's like, some of you will turn. He's like, shows Matt because he already has. It's like, right, okay. I don't know why you'd hate Matt so much, but who knows? They seem to hate everybody in this. Anyone who is a good character just gets despised, and the good and the bad guys, they get all the best stuff now. Team Fain. Well, this is a really weird scene. And I've always called them Seanchan, because that's how it's written. But apparently it's Seanchan or something like that, according to Shad on Night's Watch. So thanks, Shad. Still probably going to get it all wrong. I'm going to try not to. But here we are. We've got a little girl on a beach on her own. The Seanchan, my name's better, it sounds better, is all of the boats coming back. They're coming back to reclaim their land. And we get to see the Soldum. Now, I can't remember much about how these people looked. I don't think they had these weird facial tattoos. I'm not against it. I think it just looks stupid. There are some things where I'm like, even if that was in the books, I still think it looks stupid when you actually visualize it. But a lot of this stuff, I'd preferred my own imagination. No chain, though. There is a bracelet, so at least they're sticking to it a bit. Then we've got the people with, everyone knows what they look like, face masks. I don't know why they're covering their mouths. I don't know whether they've even got something there where they're having to, bite into it so they can't speak. There's no need for that. There's no need to speak when you're using the 1 power. So as these things were designed as methods of control, they should only really limit things which are methods of control, since that they don't block their hands or anything because they need them to channel. Shielding their mouths is bizarre and doesn't seem to serve any purpose. Now, I'm assuming the whole neck plate thing they've got is the leash. They don't want to show women on leashes. It'll be too entertaining for his viewers, I guess. But here, no, we've got rid of that. We do have a bracelet, and we do have, a kind of a neck chain. The thing is, these are supposed to just be, slotted onto them. So what I'm hoping they do, as it's the only way you can actually recover whatever this mess is I'm looking at on the screen. So what I'm hoping they do is that the collar is separate to the shoulder pads, because that'd solve most of the issues. They've got a bracelet. There's no chain linking the collar to them, because that would be extremely problematic symbology, so I don't think we're ever going to see that. It'd be too entertaining for the men out there. But the rest could work, as long as the collar is detachable, or they've got different collars that they use for portability, because basically, you're not going to carry those around to trap other people. That's the problem. Because unless the collar is separate, then what they do in the future doesn't work, because you're not going to carry around loads of those big metal things just to try and, what are we going to do with this? It's not going to work. You're not going to capture anyone. It's not going to work. So they have to stick to the books at least a little bit to have what needs to happen, and this is impossible, but they could say that this is like a permanent one, or they could say it's like the Aes Sedai rings. When you've actually reached a certain point of being a domain, you get these more impressive shoulder pads. I think that could work. It could still be salvaged. The question is if they want to salvage it, or whether it's just all done for visuals and to solve something that was problematic. We're going to have to wait until the next season for that. There really is no coming back from that face mask, though. It looks ridiculous. No one's going to take you seriously. I'm not going to be able to take any scenes these people are in seriously. Get rid of it. Get rid of it now. Whoever thought of it, it's a bad idea. Just cut your losses before the next season. You can salvage the other stuff maybe for the lore, but that's ridiculous. Here's a close-up for comedy reasons. And then what you see is like 100 ships all channeling in the water to make a tidal wave. Why? I mean, it's a massive tidal wave. They must really hate that little girl. Like, what's she ever done to you? Now, the only thing I can really think is that there was a prophecy that little girl needed to die. That's they're just nuking her because they're like, oh my god, something really bad will happen if she survives. That's the only thing I can think. Because it's not even like that tidal wave is going to sweep across into something else. It's just mountains behind her. That little girl is the only one there. So they basically have to say something like, well, she was going to be the next Nynaeve or something. She must have been really powerful, and they had to come back, predict the future, and do a bit of a Terminator moment. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think. But if I was a writer, I wouldn't have written this scene to begin with, so I don't know why I'm trying to think of their way out of it. Oh, that's it. That's finally it. Now, what I can congratulate them on in this episode is at least being consistent to their other ideas that they've shown further on. In the fact that they get everything wrong, they don't know what good is, they don't know what evil is, and they seem to misrepresent both sides, and so you end up cheering for the bad guys. In this, you had Fain, who's the bad guy, saying that we need both sides. Like, we need equal sides of both sides. Essentially, the Jedi position, we need balance in the Force, which isn't what the Dark One actually wanted, but it's what he is here. Then we've got Nynaeve and Egwene literally watching thousands of people die when they could have saved them, and they just stand there doing nothing. That's a pure evil move, and it's something that, for me, those characters can't come back from that. There's nothing that they can do, no matter how long the season runs for, where I will not see them as evil from this point on. I can't think of doing anything worse. That's not just, oh, well, we could have helped. No, you have a duty to. I don't even care what you said. They should have run over there. They should have gone and helped no matter what was said. But instead, they literally stood there listening to the screams of their victims and did nothing. And then finally, after one of them actually got her comeuppance, actually sacrificed herself to save her friend, it would have been a good story. And it's like, she actually has some consequences. She actually sacrificed. That would at least have tried to a bit of a hero's journey. Instead, it's no, there's no consequences. She just comes back, literally back from the dead. And instead of saving the people right next to him that have gone through the same thing that Nynaeve did, they just hug, and the people next to them die. There is no coming back from those two. Every single move they did in that scenario was pure evil. And it's only because this is written from the moral perspective of the writers, and they have no idea what's good and what's bad. Like, literally, things have been so twisted at this point, like, they're just trying to write things and stick to all the rules. That's why I could predict what was going to happen. I predicted the story almost in its totality, and when all we saw was, like, little split seconds of footage. But it was so obvious, because once you know the characters, and once you know the rules, everything else plays out perfectly. One thing I couldn't predict is how they were going to make the bad guys good, but here we are. And the one thing I can't actually explain is how they keep making Moraine look thick. Because that's not something they should be wanting to do. Everything that they put forward as they believe should make them want to make Moraine amazing. So I can only assume that they think she is, even though she's only actually beaten in stupidity by Perrin at this point. Like, even in this, the bad guy always won. It didn't matter whether Rand actually channeled and made the dream real, because he would have been removing people's free will, which is evil, and therefore he would have gone to the dark. Because the dark doesn't want people to have free will. There is no choice. There is no balance. So everything Fain said was nonsense, and that proved that. The dark would have been removing their free will, and they would have got the dragon and gone forward from there. Or Rand could have destroyed him, which was Moiraine's plan, in which case he blows up the seal. Oops. That meant whatever Rand did, any of the choices that he was given before him, he still lost. Now, the writers didn't mind that because Rand's just a man after all. But it wasn't his idea. He was just being led about by the nose by an Aes Sedai, someone who's manipulative. It wasn't his choice. It was Moiraine's. So Moiraine sent him into a position where he couldn't win, where they always lost, where the Dark One always won. And it makes her look stupid. She had no plan. She literally brought a boy to the eye of the world, as it's supposed to be in this, with the only plan of either he'll, follow my plan, in which case we still lose, or I'll kill him, in which case we still lose, because I've literally just destroyed the warrior for the light. Congratulations. In a sort of quality of plan from Robert Jordan to Perrin, we're really into Perrin territory there. And it's been a toss-up all along, but I think I wrote off Nynaeve and Egwene earlier in the season. Nynaeve was always really annoying, and she's improved since sort of the ways. I've thought she's got a little bit better, but Egwene got a lot worse. And then in this, Perrin just took over and won by a mile, because he's done nothing the entire series except just be a complete fool. He started as a fool, and he ended as a fool. I thought we were actually going to get some kind of reveal about his wife. Not yet, apparently, if at all. That may have just been like how it looked, which doesn't really make any sense, but here we are. But for the rest of it, he does nothing, and he just stumbles along. Oh, it's fine. Oh, somebody tell me what to do, because I don't know. And it's, oh, no. So they've destroyed him, and if the theory about him and Rand are true, then that's not going to look good for you, right? So I don't know, none of this had an emotional impact on me. Loial wasn't built up into a main character. We never got to a position to like him because we barely saw him on the screen. At least on the screen we got to see Rand and the rest of them in the last couple of episodes, so they've finally become characters in their own show. So that was good. But Loial never was, and so when he died, I'm like, you're relying on my emotional bond to the Loial in the books, but this isn't the books. You keep saying it. This is an entirely different universe. And so any attachment they have to the characters in the books, I don't have it here anymore. You've got rid of that. I don't care about these people, because they're not those people. They just have the same name. That's literally it. So when he went, I'm like, he was barely in anyway. So your emotional moment carried no weight. And that's not my fault. That's yours. That basically sums up the entire show. They could have had a great show. They had the people. The sound department in this, again, I thought really carried some scenes where just because they were so dark, you couldn't see anything, but you still got the atmosphere because of the music itself, because of the sound effects themselves. There's always been departments in the series which have done really well. Just never the writers, never the showrunner. It's the direction of the show which has been bad. I think even the actors themselves, I'm not holding them to blame at all. They've done the best with what they've been given. It's just if you're Perrin's actor, you've been given nothing. I've said many times that I think Rosamund Pike's my favourite actor out the entire show. It's just they've destroyed her character. And I don't think they're even trying to. It's just they're incapable of not doing. So here we are at the end of the first series, and I've completely severed any kind of connection that I've got between this and the source material. And that makes this all the worse. Rafe went into this trying to destroy the Wheel of Time. He knew the effect it would have, and he laughed at it. He thought it was hilarious. It was his intention, and it's what he pitched to Amazon. None of them cared about the source material. They only cared about what they wanted. They cared about getting an impact. They cared about videos like this. They wanted people to have reactions like I've had in the previous episodes. But I don't care about it anymore. You didn't do your job, Rafe. What you made was a pile of trash. And I know you think, oh my god, he's so triggered, and that really warms my bones. Well, I don't care. I don't care what you've done to this. This is a different universe. This is fan fiction. It doesn't affect the books at all. I've had comments before. Oh, what if I told you the books still existed? I'm like, yes, they do. Congratulations. You understand how reality works. And fan fiction. It's not my fault this is fan fiction. It's not my fault that I'm not having the same reaction that a lot of people are. This is the best thing ever, and you've got to like it or leave. It's like, no, I don't. I can still watch the show, I can still take the piss out of the show, and I can still derive entertainment from it by taking the piss out of it. Because no matter how bad it is, I'm British, and taking the piss out of things is what we do. It's what we live for, and it's what we enjoy. So, we're going to have a season 2 of this, and I'm going to be right back here doing exactly the same thing. And by then, any emotions at all I had between the show and this, I already don't feel them, but then they'll be completely and utterly destroyed. So congratulations, Rafe. You've made an entertaining few weeks, but not for the reasons you thought. And I'm kind of looking forward to see what you destroy next, because after this, it's going to be interesting to see whether you're pitching about your second season premiere getting a lot of attention, because your first one may well have done. Just not sure about the rest. But for now, that's it from me. If you like the video, press like and subscribe. More videos in the future, and let me know what you've thought of this episode and the rest of the series down below. But for now, for the last time on this series videos, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh, have mercy on us all.